I'll repeat this 1,000 times, so retweet the space. Let me wait because Astral's coming in to help me. That way I can get other people
All
in
right,
here because
hold on.
you know me with my ADHD. What I'm trying to get is enough people in here that as I talk, this stuff's out there. They can just go put a link in there. And so that'll help. So there's a list because I'm telling you right now, it's easy to follow and people's minds will be fucking blown. Hey, talk. Check. Hey, can you guys hear me again? This shit's so fucked up, man. I can't stand not being able. I mean, literally, no cell, no. I'm moving this place, going someplace nice, heaven. Give me a second. Let me get this fixed, and I'll start going through it. The more people in here, the far easier to get. Because, like I said, I don't want to have to try to post. I want to be able to just do what I do best, which is talk about the subject. And if other people know, or it's pretty easy to find as I discuss these companies, the contracts, all these different things that are going on. It's all public record and it's right there. So it's a legit reason too. So once we get to it, do me a favor, just retweet for now. And I'm just going to kind of go through and try to set my dang headset and stuff up. Talk for me, Christian. Am I lagging? Can anyone hear me? Christian,
Yeah,
you
bro,
there?
you good?
I'm having, I think, connection issues. Can you guys hear me or am I just lagging?
You're good, bro.
All right. Can't wait to leave this freaking place. What's up, Carlos? Just trying to, just out here trying to do some investigations, get myself disappeared by portal. You know how you do. So we'll start her up in a few minutes. I'm waiting for my co-host so he can kind of help me kind of guide all this, and I'll start ranting kind of about the subject. This won't be my typical let everyone talk because I won't want to be interrupted. Usually I talk better that way, and then maybe later I'll go back and add it. But other people can easily find most of this stuff. It's literally public information, and it's the thing is this. It's exactly what Tom DeLonge's books are talking about. And what's really wild is I come across all of this and I have this all and I figured it out. And then I come across this website, xcorp.com. Okay. So what I'm telling you about that, use your filters, but fill in BlackRock for the name X Corp in all the subsidiaries. And that's a really easy way to kind of get a grasp of what's kind of going on. So Blackstone is that company, but we'll start talking more here in a second. Just retweet, uh, throw some quotes in there too, man. MH370 and UFO stuff, if you can. Chase, you want to help me since he's not here as well? No? You want to not help me, Chase? Or you can't? Are you working? You're not even going to give me a thumbs up or down? I can't tell if I'm lag. Christian, answer a question real quick. You there?
Yeah, bro, I'm in the middle of a line in Starbucks and on speaker, but I don't care.
No, you're fine. No, you're completely fine. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't lagging. I don't have anybody else up here that can talk. And I'm actually in a location that literally has pretty much no service. So I just got to make sure because you know how pissed I'd be if I talk about all this and you guys didn't hear half of it. So So we'll give it till 3:52, odd number, I know, and then we'll start. I'm gonna go through and actually kinda get an outline going, and then maybe I can copy and paste that as I go as well to help you guys follow along. I want you to sing for everybody, Christian, and all the people at Starbucks.
What you say, bro?
You should sing for everybody while I'm doing this.
Nah, nah, dude. Dude, I'm in the middle of the line in Starbucks. We're talking about UFOs, and people are already looking at me like, "What the hell is this guy talking about?" I can start singing.
Alright, cool. Well, guys, looks like it's just us. So we'll get started here in about 2 more minutes. I had to post something. Hey, have you guys tried that? So check this out. If you haven't tried the Chat GPT function, like the photo function, that shit can decipher things. I'm talking like fill in redacted information, give you its best guess at least. I was impressed, right? So you could do photos and things. I wonder if you could do a freaking pulsar map. Or maybe you guys could do a pulsar map. Yeah, Astral's like, just start a space and I'll be right in there. Because I told him I was going to need your help.
I was
So,
literally just thinking
Christian,
about where the hell is Astral.
yeah, it's all right. Well, like I said, it's an odd number, but 2 more or 3 more minutes. It's almost 3:52 here, so we'll get started then.
Dude, but the title should do it because I've heard some pretty interesting shit about it. MH370 and passengers that were in it, but I'm not gonna spoil it for you. I'm sure you got, you're gonna do your thing. But yeah, it's pretty interesting, and that video is pretty fucking interesting too.
And here's what's really interesting. Mine's not a piggyback. I'm not biased in any way for the simple fact of my investigation was for something completely different, and it intersects with his. I didn't even know about those videos until, like, probably 3 or 4 days ago, and then it all made sense with all the stuff the information that I had. So it was literally intersecting. It was basically I had all the who, what's, and why that happened. And like I said, it's pretty obvious. It's almost your typical bullshit game. And I'll screw it. I'll get started. This was just going to be a little bit short. We'll say this. We'll start here. So BlackRock and Blackwater were the NGOs that were involved in that. They had the reverse engineered tech that I was talking about. Blackstone is another company. I gotta go find a name. And these individuals are having a shadow war. Okay, they both have private mercenary offshoots or someone who they're connected to who has one of those groups. Like there's a Blackstone Defense, I think, as well. Well, here's the kicker of all this. Christian actually mentioned he actually said that he had heard some things about the passengers on MH370. Well, they had filed a patent for semiconductors. And some of the research I said, oh, it was nothing, no game changer, nothing along those lines, wasn't important, all these different things. Um, the thing is, the more I dug, already knowing that Eric Prince and Blackwater with Blackstone, they're basically an assassination arm, have reverse engineered craft, right? And they've used that craft in this assassination because they basically just disappeared them. Who's going to ask questions? Around the time the MH370 disappeared, Blackstone lost money. And you know what portfolio they lost it in? Future Tech, which is their portfolio for the actual frickin' damn, I forgot the name of the damn thing again already. Portfolio for let me have to look it up real quick. Semiconductors, thank you. So semiconductor announcement for the patent happened. They lost money. MH370 disappears. BlackRock actually has a portfolio it's called Future Tech. In that portfolio, they have multiple semiconductor companies. And if you guys remember, whenever the whole bullshit started up with China, we needed to have semiconductors elsewhere. So American companies stepping up, taking these contracts, all this different things. So BlackRock has this portfolio full of these. But not only that, they have a portfolio that's full of AI tech. They have aerospace companies, which are also going to be tech that requires what? Semiconductors, right? So these semiconductors are that important to them because the United States government's doing a huge future tech push. Hell, we're just coming to the cusp of what they have. If you watch MH370, you're seeing one of the reasons it's important our government gets on the ball is if there was a war, we don't have the weapons to win against NGOs currently. You saw what happened there. But these semiconductors, you have on top of that, you have the government pushing AI. With that, I mean sentient. You have the JADC, did I say it right? JADC2, which is interconnected with all the aerospace companies, and it's reliant on semiconductors. All of their products pretty much do. So these semiconductors, again, are important. On top of that, you have a general that was pushing for an ICBM revitalization. Can you guess what's needed? Semiconductors. Do you see where I'm pointing at right here? So it was a crime that no one was followed because it looks too ridiculous. I'll tell you that I think for real, every bit of what we saw is accurate. And again, take what I'm saying, use your filters, parse it, go read Tom DeLonge's books, then read that X Corp site, right? So X Corp being the BlackRock's a stand-in for X Corp. It's all about these semiconductors, and it sounds like a minute little bit, but you need to understand from this point on, pretty much anything defense related is going to need semiconductors. That's contracts, that's money, and that's what people kill each other over. Billions in money. Both these companies, different sides. That's the shadow war that I think Lou was even talking about. I don't think the shadow war has fuck all to do with NHI. The shadow war is contractors taking each other out for whoever's paying them. Because again, these semiconductors to this company, BlackRock, in their future tech profile, their AI on top of it, all their aerospace defense companies, whatever companies they have that rely on semiconductors, they lose that money, they could be feeding themselves. So they could be doing all, right? So what's up, Stu? You want to come up and talk? You got questions? That way, yeah, it's probably good. If you guys got questions, if I've left you behind in it, let me know and I'll try to answer them. Sometimes I get ahead of myself.
Actually, I just wanted to become a speaker in case I wanted to say something quickly.
Okay. Just don't interrupt me because I'll come over there and I'll hurt you, Stu, because I'll lose my track.
Sorry.
I'm messing with you. You're fine, Stu. I pretty much said what I need to say there, right? So we can talk about whatever you guys want, the implications, whatever this means. I gave most of that. I'll give a more thorough when I get to my next destination, and I'll actually post more links and things like that. So the gist of it is this. The shadow war that Lou Elizondo talks about, I'm in the belief that it's contractor against contractor. Same thing that Tom Long's books are kind of talking about. And it's over semiconductors, AI. These things are in BlackRock's portfolio, aerospace defense. All of them require semiconductors. The entire DoD future projects defense are reliant on what? Semiconductors and AI because they're interconnected. It's the Internet of Things that'll kill everybody type of thing, right? What's up, Sue?
I was just going to say, I've been listening to things about semiconductors for about 30 years because my ex deals with all that and he works on the Navy base. So I get the importance of it. And the first time I heard it, that there were so many people with patents and whatnot, I thought, well, there's a good reason to get rid of it, to get rid of them, you know?
See, what changed things, we realized during the, pandemic that we had a supply chain issue, especially if it's overseas, especially if it's reliant on a nation we're not necessarily friendly with, because they can hold it hostage. And a lot of semiconductors were coming from places like China, Taiwan for parts, things like that. There's also a push for resources to produce these things, okay? So, all of this is all interconnected, like, the different players all used to work within the government, all have hit the revolving door of aerospace defense, government, so they know all of this stuff. But what the scary thing is this, that these contractors have enough of the tech that they could actually do what they wanted. No one would really know most of the time. Now with sentient, yes, but look at us now. Look at Ashton. People are arguing, "Oh, you're such an idiot," because of what it looks like, because they refuse to see what's there. No one will even take a peek. It's all right there. Plenty of reasons. Dude, people have been murdered for far, far, far less. This is literally control of the world. The DoD's AI and defense initiatives from this point on, this is literally that kind of money and control of all of that because they actually have more better weapons than us, as we've seen. So, yes, the fact that this is even happening, it blows my mind because I sit there and think to myself, it wasn't even a possibility yesterday that I could just be disappeared and everyone write it off because it sounds too crazy. What's up, Christian?
Yeah, and I think that's part of it, dude. Whatever this control group is, once you start getting close to some truth or something important to them, something happens where it's so far fetched that you lose all credibility. And I was gonna, I hate to sound stupid, but like I'm not. I don't know. I don't even know what a semiconductor is. I know, and I don't want a science class from you, but this have to do with like free energy, or because I was seeing this episode on the Y files of alien reproduction vehicles and patents, people that wrote patents and people that were trying to do documentaries, and the people that had died that this guy named, it was insane, bro. Like, like they just, I'm sure you saw that episode, right? You know what I'm talking about, Shane?
Well, yeah. So the implications of this are even deeper. If they're way ahead of us in the tech game, they're way ahead of us in the research game on what's real, what's not. Hell, maybe they even know what kind of energy is coming out of the Black Pyramids in Alaska. I don't know. My point is, it could. The main thing it has to do with right now is good old fashioned greed. That's what it is. It's control of the world and control of the money. Makes sense? And semiconductors, basically what anything that's going to have some kind of guidance requires. So you don't have to use an old fashioned tube
Right. It holds the information, right?
like the brain.
Right.
It'll fuck you got me? Well, my little brain, one of the two. We're having trouble hey, Zakuda, if you can't come in, if I can't bring you up now, exit the app, close it, come back. It might be an app thing. Yeah, you can all blame Astral. If he'd have been in here, I could have been going through and naming off names and doing all kinds of stuff. So nope, it's Astral's freaking fault.
Yeah, man. And I just got home and I'm gonna have to switch to listening because I got to deal with my kids and stuff. But I will be listening. This is pretty interesting.
And if you guys got questions, I mean, maybe that question will help jog something I forgot. So go ahead, Zakuda.
Hey man, good to be one in the space with you. I haven't been on these things for a while. So I've been following some of the MH370 stuff, and obviously it's fascinating. The one thing that I keep thinking, I think increasingly, yourself, Ashton, one of the theories is that this is tech that's essentially been developed by people from crash retrieval programs or something, or perhaps just very advanced tech. What I'm thinking is why use this tech to do something that you could do with with other needs, right? So this plane was flying apparently and got taken in an area where the radar was weak. There was military exercises happening. We know that the US and presumably other people who work contractors with the US military have means of disabling electronic communications and spoofing radar. They could have just sent a couple of jets and escorted this plane to anywhere they wanted to and do whatever they want. So my question is, if I had tech like this and I'm really only going to use it in situations where it's absolutely necessary to try and keep it as secret as possible. So why use it to do something that you could do through other means?
Well, look where we're at right now. What other instances do you have video of a crime and everyone's kind of no one's paying attention? So this needs to be when you said, they could escort them, do radar. It's not the government. This is NGOs, non-governmental organizations. Blackwater, Eric Prince and Blackwater. Remember what they did in Iraq? They didn't even have this tech yet.
100%. But I think, these guys have access to so much money that if there was someone on that plane that they didn't want going to China, would it not have been easier to bribe them or kidnap family members and blackmail them into not doing something? Or
All that leave threads that can be followed. You disappear someone in a portal. I know it sounds crazy. But again, here's what we're not thinking about. There's something about those patents that scared the shit out of them. Because those patents for those semiconductors is what this all is all about. When I say money, do you have all the money? I don't think you understand. From this point going forward, anything that has a guidance system, AI, well, that's ballistic. That's pretty much any of our actual missiles, right? They had little guidance systems. Anything related to that. On top of that, it's all interconnected in some uh, Terminator 2 type AI defense thing initiative, JAD2, Sentient, and a couple other programs. And all our future tech programs are supposed to talk. Matter of fact, within or outside of Defense Department, you have Northrop, which you have Scott Stapp, who's in charge of the program, where they integrate. So they're all able to integrate as they're producing whatever weapon systems they produce. All of these things, every one of these things in the future even require semiconductors. This isn't even an old person's game where it's like, oh well, this kind of thing's happened before. No, we're in a transition where everything's going to AI and semiconductors. Their portfolio is heavy on AI semiconductors because of what happened during the pandemic, that supply line issue. They realized we can't rely on China, all this and that. 20 individuals on that plane lost their life that were part of the company. Their names weren't even on the manifest, right? So we have to start asking questions. Okay, this is starting to make sense if we start looking at the amounts of money involved, the players involved, and what exactly we're talking about. What about those patents was special that scared them? That's important. I don't know that yet, but I do know that every bit of this, especially again, if you take the other things that are already out there, Tom DeLonge series, all the other information, and you start putting it together, we can not talk about this stuff because it makes people really uncomfortable and it makes people sound like they're a nut job. Hell, I just told someone today, hey, I'm going to send you some info in case I get portaled, jokingly, but not really because I didn't think that was a fucking option. But my
yeah,
point being, I was like, hey, this shit's so real, but so ridiculous. People just look at it and go, why would they do that when they could something I don't have yet? So I'm still working on there's something about those patents, about that, but I can tell you the money involved, I'm talking billions upon billions at stake. You feel me? Especially your future, probably way more than that.
oh, I hear you. I think that, like, on the one hand, you think that a foreign adversary, like say for example China, doesn't really care what's under patent and what's not, right? Like if China needs to develop tech that is similar and they need to steal technology to do that, just because they have the legal right to do it through a patent doesn't really make a difference to them. So the only people who really care about patents are people who live in Western democracy who face US sanctions essentially. So you kind of wonder, like, who really needs access to that patent more than anything else? It will be companies competing with themselves in the Western world, because China doesn't care if you patent this. If they can make it, they'll make it, and they'll use it, right?
Sorry, I'm putting stuff in the nest, guys. If you're just joining us, you want to follow along, retweet the space, right? Like I said, what I'm trying to do in here is talk about the who, what, and why. And here's what I'm going to do. If you guys can, as I talk about this, if you're in a place that you can, all you got to do is Google the shit and you'll literally start finding information on as I talk about it. Throw that in the thread if you can do that. And if not, I'll go back later and try to post some of it. Or when I get to my next spot, I think I'll be there next week, early next week, right? I'm excited about that shit. And I'm going to end up going and I'll start doing more of this stuff, right? It's just hard with no internet and stuff here for me to do. I can't do two things at once. So I can't talk and post at the same time, which sucks. So retweet the space, guys, and I'll give you info. And like I said, you know how weird it is to be in a spot. I understand how Ashton feels. It's frustrating to know that people will get away with some garbage ass, horrific shit. Because, first off, the journalist who should be breaking it won't. Okay. Second, the way it sounds. So all I'm saying is open minds, and you can read for yourself and start seeing where all this crazy shit's pointing. Like I said, Ashton, the stuff he's talking about, I wasn't even, I mean, I was already doing another investigation and mine intersects with his, and that's how, so that's what I'm saying. He's legit. His shit's legit. His sources are legit. Everything I'm telling you, my sources, people are going to find out. This is what Lou Elizondo, the Shadow War, this is that shit that people aren't ready to hear because it's bad. Those NGOs, they got mercenaries, man. You know, those companies. What's up, Sue?
Um, I don't know if you said this before I came into the space. I doubt it, but weren't there two people on the plane that weren't really who they said they were? And do you think they have anything to do with it?
I didn't hear that. Why don't you tell me a little bit about that, or at least show me where somewhere? The more I learn, the better. Because sometimes, like I said, me
Um,
and
it was brought up yesterday in the space I was in.
it was probably
Um,
me, and no, there was. I don't know
there were
about two
two
people not
people.
supposed to
Yeah,
be in there, but I
there were
did.
two people who changed, who were like their passports weren't real. And their pictures, they weren't who they really were.
Okay, then I'll investigate that, and I thank you, Sue, because I'm not doubting you.
Yeah,
I
yeah. I just don't know the details of it. I heard it so long ago, and then someone brought it up yesterday, and I said, "Oh yeah, that's right," but I don't
It,
remember. But I'm
it
positive.
was it was mentioned in a podcast by Ashton that there's two Iranians who were on board that plane, and that they had essentially paid a lot of money to get fake passports
holy
and
shit,
Right,
guys!
right.
What'd you say? Two what?
Iranians.
Oh my god!
So there was two Iranians on the plane who had paid a lot of money to get some fake passports, and when the plane finally went missing, the people whose passports they had stolen were like, we weren't on that plane, like we're right here. So it didn't make sense because normally, if these guys are trying to just like, for example, get into Europe illegally, you wouldn't think that going through Beijing would be the best way to take that route, right? You don't really want to be facing Chinese
No, they
security
actually
with
needed
fake
people with
passports.
them. They needed people with them when they were portal to Diego Garcia.
Right. So these two guys were on the plane. And in my head, I was thinking, so if you just wanted to get rid of the plane, you'd have the perfect excuse because you got two potential guys on the plane that could cause problems. And, you just blow it up with a missile and say, oh, look, these two guys were on board. They must have done something terrible, loss of life, move on, right? If you wanted to just get rid of the plane, you could have done it through those means.
Could I ask you a question? What they needed them, and how else could you get a plane to land? Oh my god, this makes way more sense. Because again, I just said landed with Diego Garcia. What if they needed him for something? Design? I don't know. But my point is, you're right. They could do a million things, but why portal them then? They portal them somewhere. Is
I'm
my point.
surprised you didn't hear that before.
I didn't, Sue. That's why I rely on these spaces, Twitter, because again, that's why I learn so much. I click on shit just constantly. Go ahead, Kristen.
Good evening, Shane. I have a theory that I had heard from one of the original Tom Nodders. Her name is Cindy. She is also on Twitter. She was also featured in the Netflix documentary about MH370, both in episode 1, and she was also featured in episode 3. And the question that came to mind, and I'm not going completely down the rabbit hole of Ashton. However, um, my
Hey, Kristen, you're breaking up for me. I'm
okay, can
sorry
you
to
hear me?
step on you. I just want to make sure. Are you breaking up for anybody else? I don't want you to have to re-say everything.
I can you hear me much better now? Thumbs up if you can.
No, it might be me, Kristen. So I am sorry for stepping on you. I'm in a really cool location.
Okay, fair enough. So the theory that I would like to present, and I'm simply playing devil's advocate at this point, is that what if it was a military operation and the plane simply was shot down by another nation state? Um, and I know that no one wants to think that way, of course, but it would make one wonder, is potentially the United States involved in a a possible, for lack of a better term, was were they possibly involved in shooting that down? And that's, I know that's very much out there, and I know that's may or may not where the evidence leads. However, it was a theory that was presented to me by one of the original Tom Nodders, and where she does believe that it was shot down by the United States.
I think just the lack of debris is what is the issue with that theory, right? Like they looked far and wide, and it wasn't just one nation that was involved in the search for debris. There was a lot of Chinese nationals on board that plane, so China was looking, Malaysia, Thailand, like everyone was looking for debris,
I
and you would
think
have thought.
I think Shane's having a hard time. He didn't hear Kristen. Is it Kristen? He didn't hear you at all.
Shane, can you hear me by chance? Or I can just drop down to listener and then come back out.
Shane, can you hear anybody? I don't
All
think
right,
he.
I had to I'm Kristen. I wasn't disregarding anything you're saying. I heard some of it. It's not you. It's me. So literally, one of the things that I did hear, shot down by a nation state. That could have been a thing, but there would be debris. The thing with the debris is this: it's really, really starting to look even fishier when that debris that they find is a small piece and it doesn't have a serial number. Maybe the piece that they're looking for, but that doesn't have a serial number. And if there was a shoot down, there would be a lot of debris because that means there's going to be some kind of an impact in the air or on the ground between whatever is going on. So that debris should be floating. They should find more, but it's pretty, I guess, telling the fact that they find a little, and when they do, what a freaking coincidence! With just like the rest of this conspiracy, it fits right in. No one knows. And I'm sorry if I missed most of what you're saying. I actually reset my damn app, so hopefully this fixes it. I'm going to bring Astral's late ass up here.
No, my question was, it was that theory was presented to me by one of the original Tom Nodders. Her name is Cindy. She is also on Twitter. And let me look her name back up again. Her name is Cindy L. Hendry. She was a part of the Netflix documentary about MH370, and she is featured in episode 1 and as well as episode 3. So that is a theory that was presented to me, and that possibly the United States could have been involved. So that, not to bash on Ashton's research by any means, it was just a theory that was presented to me. And of course, theories are not the
It's
same
a good
thing as
theory, and
fact.
that's all okay. My only difference is this, Kristen. I I'm don't know about Ashton, I'm assuming, because we come across the same information. I'm a reporter. I have sources. I have sources that know about. We're in these programs. We're part of crash retrieval, that type of stuff. That's where I can kind of get vet and things like that. And I don't know about the woman. I don't know what her theories, like if other people are telling her this is what happened, or this is yes, this did, as you bring them information. But I want to be clear. That's the difference. I'm not just spouting at the top of my lungs to be, hey, this is what I think. What I'm saying is the information that I have, I take elsewhere to make sure at least it's accurate before I talk about it here. So that's the big difference. Yes, it is a theory, and we need to get the evidence. But where else can you have video evidence and no one will pay attention? Welcome, Astral, jerk.
My bad.
And thank you for telling us. I'm not harping on you, Kristen. I'm just trying to point out. I wouldn't doubt our government would have been involved, but I don't think our government has that tech. They have maybe the shitty craft, but I don't think they have that kind of tech. There's one thing that sucks here. This is a self-feeding monster. For every bit they do this, screw each other over, take money, that money goes to fund these programs. Those programs go to fund new tech. That new tech goes to make more money. That money goes into going harder on this shit, right? So eventually, you become what's known as what? The fourth branch of the government. Larry Flynn, right? And BlackRock. So when you're that already, before any of this, that's what gets crazy. Astro, am I going to have to walk you here because you came late? I know that's what's going to happen.
I'm sorry. I need to be updated.
All right. So
I
here's
have
what
a
I'm going to
question.
do.
I
I'm
have a
going to do
question
that,
though. If
and I'll go through it
whenever
one
you
more
got a
time.
chance.
No problem. I'll go through one more time. Retweet the space. I don't want to go through it 4 more times because then I will sound like a crazy man. So retweet the space, quote it, MH370, UFO Twitter, all that. Let them know the who, what, and why, and I'll give you exactly what's kind of going on. And that way, if you do have questions and I'm not quite getting you there, ask them because my ADHD will have me just going like I know this shit back in my head. So let's do that. So retweet the space real quick, 2 minutes. I'll start talking again. Astral, take over for a minute. I gotta use the restroom anyway, dude.
I have a question in general that I always kind of wonder, and that is, I asked it the other time on my feed. It was basically like what percent of sightings, UFO or UAP, are are man-made crafts, so are basically us. And even digging deeper into that, if it is our craft, how far in advance do you think we have technology? Like, is it 50 years in the future? Is it 20 years in the future? Like, I feel like if the answer is yes, a lot of what we're seeing is UAP craft in the sky, then how advanced is it? Is it able to disappear and go through different dimensions? Have we figured out time travel? Like, to me, that's what I think about. Is I do feel like a lot of the craft that we're seeing could very well potentially be our technology of our military private programs developing craft. But like, how far in advance are we actually seeing? Are we seeing craft that are 10 to 20 years, or does it get deeper than that, where we've acquired technology where we can like time travel and shit? Like, I don't know.
So look, depends on who you're talking about. You're talking about United States government or you're talking about NGOs. There's a vast difference in what tech they have and their capabilities because again, one's getting paid, the other's not funding shit. So retweet the space and I'm going to start yapping about why MH370 happened, who was allegedly involved, and the reasons it makes sense. But
Was that
Astral?
non intelligence? Was 370 non-human intelligence? And what
No,
was the purpose?
I'm going to tell you. Don't you ever make me try to jump ship and go ahead of myself. So Astral,
We want the
no.
answers. We want the
No, but I
answers.
will tell you this. It was not an NHI. It was not alien in any way. I'll say this right now. It was a non-governmental organization. And it was also that shadow war that I think Lou Elizondo talks about. Contractor against contractor for good old-fashioned greed. And I'm going to walk you there. So retweet the space. I don't want to have to walk everybody there again because I think 6 of them got the whole story. Those 6 are the golden boys and girls.
Yeah, that's my fault.
Oh, it is your fault. I won't let you forget this, dude. You're lucky you helped me get my first camera.
You shouted me out, and then I just
It's no big deal. And hey, if you can do me a favor, if you as I'm talking, if you know where something is I'm talking about, or if you're easily able to find it, throw that in the thread. Because if I stop to do it, I'll lose my groove, and that's just the way my brain works, right? It's easier for me to just keep talking sometimes, and I'll do that. But again, ask questions if I miss something or come, one of those type of things. So retweet the space. We'll get started in. You know what? I like weird numbers. 3 minutes.
Well, you know what? I got a question. This
Ask.
is unrelated. Recently, your one of your posts has gotten some attention on the pyramid. Like, can you explain? Like, I just don't understand the pyramid, Alaska pyramid. Like, what is that whole thing. Can you break that down for me in in a couple minutes?
Actually, I can break it down for you now. If Sue will actually find that post, type in pyramid on my search and re-put it in this thread for me. Can you do that, Sue?
Well, I'm eating my
No, she
unicorn
can't do that. So
macaroni.
yes, Astral, I'll do it
Or
myself
fucking
here.
fried rice, bro.
I got
She's a warrior. I'm gonna let her, dude. She kicking cancer's ass. So eat your fried
I
rice.
got unicorn macaroni, so I don't know how I got it, but
Oh shit.
All right. So here's what I'll do. I'll guess somebody else can find it. If you find it on my page, whatever, throw it in here. Not, I'll throw it afterwards. So the pyramid in Alaska, the location of it. So one of the things, megaliths, ancient megaliths, civilizations before us. These are things that we talk about. Breakaways. Hell, you can go to Antarctica, and there's a reason there was a huge push, and everyone went and settled it in treaties, and because I'm sure they all found stuff. I'm sure they're all sitting on stuff. So as far as the Alaska pyramid, allegedly, I'm leaning towards this energy of some sort. Matter of fact, I imagine it draws in a way that we have no understanding of, or maybe some people do. And that's one of the reasons the game is important, because imagine being able to think about the energy. Because here's one of the things allegedly that pyramid can do. Now, I want to remind people the pyramid in Alaska, the location I gave you, it's sitting on a mine, an old mine. They didn't even notice it. Some of the stuff I found talks about what the pyramid, it uses energy and it goes to an atomic level and breaks apart matter so that you can separate gold from anything or whatever you need without having to go through the fuss. And it's collecting that energy from somewhere. And it's a monstrous amount of energy. And these are dotted all over the planet. So that whole ley line thing, real. I imagine like astrology, legit, these type of things, when the planets are in order, X portals, NASA's X portals. I don't know. I'm not a scientist, obviously, so I don't know all of it, but I'll tell you that the from what I understand, from what it can do, being able shit, it's like the golden grail. You master that, you get that, you figure that out, you have that, you have everything. All the resources you need. Thinking about this, matter at the atomic level. All the resources you need, anything you need, everything you need. And I also think too that somehow it's connect and the power it draws, I think it's consciousness. That third rail we're all connected to, that everything's connected to, which is consciousness. So, and it again, once you figure this shit out, we're not there yet. That's what the one human problem's about, right? It's trying to convince us we've got to elevate ourselves. We have to evolve in a way like this. So once you tap into that third rail, you can use it for your aircraft, like UFOs do when they drive, they connect. Things like that to pop in and out of timelines. Time flow problem right there. You're not having to go faster than the speed of light. If you step out of a timeline and you step back in another point, which is the whole point of exotic matter, time shifting, all these other things. So once we understand that, imagine understanding how this functions, where it's drawing its energy, because it is also an unlimited energy source, obviously. So on top of all these things, I think, shit, we wonder where this consciousness comes from, what God is, whatever that's connected to is all of that. Whatever these beings, the ones I talk about would be the light beings. And I say light beings when I say consciousness, the connection, the rail, the cosmic mirrors is a hack. When I say the cosmic mirrors, Montauk chair, those things are a hack into this, in my opinion. So, whenever they were doing the experiments, Cosrev in Russia, and they were actually seeing what they called faceless whites, energy beings on the other side, and they would see symbols manifest, and those symbols that manifested looked like Sumerian symbols. They weren't. They were unrecognizable. But when they manifested, they weren't manifesting in the people's heads only. People outside the rooms, outside the mirrors, were watching all of this happen the same time the people in the experiments were. Imagine that if you had that kind of connection, that kind of ability, and that was your tech. So whatever that is, and Alaska? I don't know, but I'll also tell you that Spartan 1 and 2, if you don't know what that is, you need to research it. That's also real. Same example, right? Hell, Linda Moulton House, when she was talking to him, she talks about, she points to a hieroglyphic of one of these symbols, and she actually mentions, she goes, looks like their flag. No, it's a pulsar map. I kind of posted in a tweet, and I'm waiting for somebody to see where it points to. So it's a pulsar map found on an underground that these guys were at. No one knows where it goes. It's on my thread, on my Twitter. If you want to find it as a 3D Christmas ornament, use Chat GPT. I'm waiting to see if somebody can figure it out. I don't know where it's at. I haven't messed with it. I got too much shit going on. But my point is, megaliths, ancient culture, all this shit that we've been just beat into our heads. No, that's the fringe. No, what that is religion and control systems, not alien control systems. Maybe some bad NHI taught these to humans because subterfuge tends to be a thing, right? But my point being is this whole thing is about keeping everybody from connecting, because what do you do to your populace if your populace can connect, hack that third rail and do the things that a lot of us think are real psi abilities, things like that that come with these. Because regardless, if you're ready to hear this, everyone in these rooms, you're all a bunch of hybrids. Yeah. So, does that answer your question, Astral?
Yeah, I have another one before you get started.
I
I
forgot what was I going to start? Oh, I was going to start on the other
I
thing,
was
huh?
gonna. I'm just talking about the 370. I feel like the MH370 got a lot of attention and a lot of buzz off the bat. There was a little bit of resistance, and I felt like there wasn't an actual explanation for what it was, but it was satisfactory enough so that people were like, okay, like this isn't something to pay attention to. But now there's sort of like this resurgence of attention towards it, but it also sort of feels like, well, why were we questioning it in the first place? Um, so I wonder, like, what do you feel like is the resistance point at this time for for like where it is in terms of skeptics?
Oh, all this has to do with this from this point on. Wait one sec. From this point on, all this has to do with is ontological shock. It's all there. This shit in a quarter. I mean, if you brought this shit out and showed it to, let's say, a cop, and it was a murder, just an average murder, and you had these videos, what would the media and everybody else do? They would at the very least investigate it. What happens if you just throw it into something that has such a fucked up stigma that people are even scared of talking about it because they'll be called Alex Jones? Matter of fact, I feel sorry. I should apologize, Alex Jones, because not everything he said is bullshit. And I always make comments like, dude, all the research I'm doing, knowing shit that I know that's real, talking about it to people, I feel like Alex fucking Jones because it's been beating my head. That's not real. That can't happen. Do you feel me? And it's ridiculous that I'm actually watching and knowing because again, remember, I have sources. I vet. I do the best I can to make sure that I'm not just spouting at the top of my lungs. To know the shit that's real doesn't matter if other people didn't talk to those sources, but to know it's real and to see this, what kind of injustice am I talking about right now? Think about it. Just step where I'm at. Say you know it's real. What just happened that no one even gives a shit about or will look at because it sounds a little too nutty? That's pretty messed up. Think what you could do with that power. You trying to figure out how to get that power, aren't you, Astral?
Damn right.
All right, did we retweet? All right, cool. This is nothing here. I'll probably end up having to say it 3 or 4 or 5, 7 more times. Also, guys, check out UFO Twitter Week. Will be coming up. I'll probably host a couple spaces there. But anyway, so we'll start here. We'll start with well, actually, Astral, where would you like me to start? That would be the appropriate place that makes sense. Because again, I knowing what I know, I may jump ahead. So, what's the easiest place to give you information to start for you?
I think just MH30. You have it headlined. The
Okay,
reason why it's gaining so much attention in the first place.
MH370. We'll say MH370. Did you have another airplane that you were talking about, or did you mean
No,
MH3?
no, I got it wrong.
Oh, all right, right. Oh, my bad. I didn't mean to call you out and embarrass you.
Eight
Yeah,
eight eight
that's for being
forty
late,
five.
bro.
Yeah,
That's for being
whatever the
late.
fuck it's called.
Anyway, so MH370, it's kind of recently come back up in the news because some videos have surfaced. A couple of those videos, one satellite, another being taken from a looks like some kind of a craft inside of a craft and kind of monitoring the situation. And during these videos, you sit and watch, and what you see is, if you know anything about the MH370, one of the things that stands out is, I'll say pattern, but it's route. It was odd. You know, if it was a suicide bomber, a terrorist, I could see a million other things, but it was almost going like just a gaggly line, like it's trying to get away from some shit. Fast forward to these videos. So these videos, as you're watching these videos, which Ashton, fabulous. If you're not, dude, Ashton's job of researching this, his sources, uh, I'm telling you now, I only know this is real because my investigation into other shit crisscrosses with his, and it all is real. So that MH370, watch Ashton's podcasting that he's talking about it. He'll catch you up on the what's been happening with MH370. So it's come back in the news for a reason. No one really ever found anything. They found a piece of a craft, and that piece of a craft, coincidentally, like every conspiracy, didn't have a serial number on it, right? So if you want to talk about one of the things that's super important, Lou Elizondo talks about a shadow war, but he also talks about, well, I say a lot of people, NGOs with tech. Tom DeLonge's books, they don't give names. You can go to xcorp.com, and in my opinion, xcorp, go to it. Trust me, you want to go to it. The one, go to xcorp.com. Xcorp is BlackRock. I spent hours. I did. This is the stupid shit I do. I spent hours going through his portfolio, matching up Xcorp to BlackRock and things like that, these different things, right? To see what was what. And that's one of the reasons, like, oh shit, Xcorp is BlackRock. So these companies have this tech. Now, one of the things we need to realize is right now, ChatGPT is pretty huge. AI is huge. The United States government, their future initiatives and future projects all rely on AI being interconnected. So we'll call it the Internet of Killing Things. That's what we'll call it. So it's got to be interconnected, sentient. All these programs are interconnected. All their future projects that rely on guidance, anything like that, require what? All of them, AI included. Semiconductors. Okay. BlackRock or their future tech profile is listed as semiconductor company, AI, NVIDIA, things like that along those lines. Why that's important? Well, these semiconductors don't just go in this AI and future tech. There's a huge push, um, with a general with a K, to revitalize the stock of ICBMs. Do you know what that would do and cost? You've got to have semiconductors. So everything from this point on is pretty much going to be semiconductors. Now, step in player two, Blackstone. And I'm not going to name off names because I'll forget them and I'll get off topic. But the individuals that own Blackstone also have their own little mercenary corp too, Blackstone Defense. And so there's a connection there. But these individuals purchased freelance, was it freelance, I think, semiconductors? The 20 individuals went missing on MH370 just filed a patent. That patent was for semiconductors. But here's the kicker. Prior to that event, BlackRock lost money on that fund. So prior to that, they took a hit when that patent was filed. That probably woke them up. So the amounts involved, when I say amounts involved, when I say typical greed, it's not typical greed. It's control of the world, control of the United States government. Again, they're already the fourth branch. So imagine every semiconductor in the government, which they all need upgraded or replaced, or that's what we need, is bought from them. You have complete control of that, right? Something in that patent scared the shit out of them. Some kind of money. Eric Prince and Blackwater were the assassination arm of them. And I'll also tell you that I know for a fact that one of the operators is a podcaster, famous. You chew on that. I'm not going to say name yet because I don't have proof to that, but I'll tell you that famous podcaster, he was one of the operators for this craft. Now ask yourselves, what happens? How do they get individuals to do these things? Well, who knows what Blackwater is? Blackwater actually is an organization who's quite famous for killing civilians. It's a mercenary corps. It's a contractor, defense contractor, right? So Eric Prince running around playing hero, doing what he wants for who? Blackstone. Specific individuals, I'm not going to say yet because I still got to develop this just a little bit more. And again, I don't want to say names and just shout names. Flynn's different until I know other shit for a fact. But most of the stuff you guys could actually go through right now and post in here and look at. And it's just there. So all of our defense initiatives, you go and research right now about the government's push. You can go, I think it's called AI I don't know what it is, and it's about their little system. And what it is, the system I'm talking about, their future push. What's the name of the system, Astral, from Terminator 2 Judgment Day? I can't remember the name of it. It's interconnected like that. Everything's interconnected because of AI and semiconductors. So it's either be updated, upgraded, or we need them. When I say billions, I mean billions upon billions, because you got to think this is not just about what's now. Contracts go future. So it's going to be a repeating thing. And the more they get fed, the more of this tech they can do. And they can rig the game, is what's done. They can rig the game in any way because no one will pay attention or you just don't see. You know how weird it is? And even though I'm super paranoid, just because of the stuff that I've been talking about, and I'm like, yes, I get it, whatever, and it's funny. But never did I think I'd be in a spot where I had to be paranoid of just being portaled the fuck out of existence and no one would say anything because it's ridiculous. Does that make any sense? It's fucking crazy.
You
Astral, did
mean
I
like
lose
someone's
you?
about to portal? It's like hold up. Let's draw
Oh,
back.
did I skip the fact that when the MH370 disappeared, the future tech that was used on it, I did skip it actually. It was portaled. Three orbs, what I'll call orbs, three metal, looks like metallic orbs, start circling the craft. MH370 starts doing maneuvers. Obviously, it's freaking out because if these things can do what they do and fly with how they fly, and they can, because if you watch the videos, what you see is what looks like exhaust coming out of the front. It's not exhaust, it's compressed space time. So it creates that. So these things are so far advanced, they're using gravity drives, a warp bubble. I didn't know that existed. What about you guys, right? They do. So these things are spinning. As they're spinning, what they do is they spin around this craft. It's an MH370's doing its turns that we see and are famous for. That makes no sense. All of a sudden, there's a flash and it's gone. Here's the fucking crazy thing. I've seen that before. Not just the orbs. I've seen that in another video. There's instances. I think it was maybe it was Spain, an older picture. They talk about during the event, this huge craft pops up in the sky, and they saw all these humans walking around, looks like doing maintenance, and they describe it as popping out of existence like that. Time travel, portal. Sounds wild. I don't know where they went. I think Diego Garcia is where I'm leaning. I don't know for 100%. But the reason I've been talking about time travel, our perception of it, how we see it, is way the hell off. Okay. So I think we need to start breaking down the fact that UFOs, holy shit. I used to say to Juan, tip of the iceberg. Not even tip, man. I didn't even know our government knows way more than I thought they knew. But not only that, NGOs, they have it all. The keys. Look, they just disappeared a plane full of people. And people are just looking at me like I'm batshit insane because I want to talk about it. That's what you talk about. That's a weapon you need right there. Ain't nobody going to believe you. Ain't nobody going to find you. So yeah, whenever there's billions upon billions, and I'm talking, think about it. United States government, every fucking defense project that requires any kind of guidance, any kind of AI, any kind of internet of killing things is going to be using these now or in the future. And when they do, that's money. And that money goes into more tech. So Tom DeLonge's been right. He's writing this shit, just leaving the name out type thing, right? And I get it now. These players, I mean, hell, they use ex-operators to do these things. I wouldn't doubt it. They wipe their minds. I mean, I don't know that, but it's just our government does that shit. And they've been doing it, what, since the 80s, 70s, able to just brainwash somebody. By brainwash, wake up, people. I mean, just take anything they want out of your head. B posted some things in there, and they talk about with DARPA a couple different patents or papers, and they were talking about essentially the putting in of information and the taking out of information, a synthetic telepathy program. What's up, Sue?
Okay, so this might sound like a dumb question, but I'm just a little confused. The portal that the plane disappears in, that is our government or extraterrestrial?
No such thing as dumb questions, only dumb shames. It's not extraterrestrial.
It's our government. Now, what's
No, no, it's
Ashton?
not our government.
Oh,
It's literally BlackRock and
oh,
Blackwater.
right,
It's
right,
a billionaire and his billionaire toys.
right.
He's got a
Now,
small
what
wiener and he's showing it.
does I've read all of Ashton's stuff, but I can't retain that much. Um, is that what Ashton believes as well? That it's human, in other words,
I
not.
don't know what Ashton believes. I don't know if he's there yet. What I'm saying is this: regardless of what he believes, that's what it is. That's the investigation I was doing.
Hmm.
I didn't know about MH370, but my connections actually they're there with him. They intertwine. So it's you see what I'm saying? I'm trying to listen. I'm one of the first ones to know this. I know it sounds stupid. People don't want to believe me, but the amount of time I put effort I put in this.
I believe you.
So hey, Sue, when I rely on my Peter Tingle, I'm telling you, it takes me places.
Oh,
But
God.
again, so I'm kind of, I was talking to Ashton. I was being super paranoid too, because I was like, because I'm going on a trip. Like, damn, I'm not gonna say when either. I'm like, man, if I gotta fly,
Yeah,
man, I don't know if I want to say until I get there.
don't say anything, please.
Yeah, I'm not going to anyway, even if I'm being super paranoid, because again, I mean, I'm a nobody, so it's not really. I mean, they're better off because if I did just disappear, think about it, that'd probably be a lot more trouble. But just so everybody in this room knows, I am not going to disappear myself, suicide myself, or do something crazy like that. If it happens, it was BlackRock or Blackwater or one of my exes or a friend. So, anybody else have any questions? Have I skipped anything? We can talk about anything else. Did Astral just leave? I must have really blew his fuck. He's scared shitless. I bet you I broke his ontological whatever button.
He didn't have his Peter Dingle or whatever it's called.
Is what? Is Peter Dingle? Peter Tingle? You gotta watch Spider Man, Sue. You keep making me sound like a pervert.
Well,
It's Spider Man, Sue. I'm not really talking about what you think I'm talking about.
I know. When I got off to space last night, I was like, I kept saying that word in my head, and it was like getting all confused. And I'm like, he's gonna change that.
No, what I'll start calling is my hunch. It is pretty uncomfortable anyway to call it that. Just my hunch. I'll follow my hunch as opposed to, or my gut, one of those type of things. So,
Yeah.
go ahead, Shy. What do you got?
Hello, Elva. How's you doing, darling? Okay, thank you for this space and thank you for talking about this stuff because, well, just thank you. Um, I, I don't want to get silly, but there's someone in the room, by the way, um, whose name begins with R, who could talk to you about that moving, the things moving around the aeroplane and the thing called quanta. By the way,
We're talking about Roy.
yes.
Yeah, Roy, if he's, I don't want to put him on blast. I know he can talk about it. He's welcome to come up and talk about all of this.
He can make lots of that stuff make more sense, by the way. But
You're welcome up here, Roy. I just didn't want to put people on blast. Garrett, any of you guys can come up here. You guys talk about this stuff. So
do that to him. But I'm just saying that it doesn't not make sense. It does when you speak to the right people. But the thing that I did was left with throughout all of it was this was clearly a non-governmental organisation who saw 20 physicists going with a pattern to make something, and now suddenly everything's gone, and that's just a truth all of its own that needs people like you to go and stare at with your big eyeballs and mouths and say things because, oh my word, I wish I was smart enough to understand what it is they just destroyed.
you know what's super wild is my investigation actually it started with this. I was trying to go into, I guess you would say, the revolving door that aerospace defense, government, these tech programs. So I started digging on sentient, all the programs that are intertwined with sentient that are going to be connected, and all the individuals and players and cross referencing, doing things like that. And the more you do it, the more you see that because of all that interconnection and these players and even all the stuff I talk about how our government's lying, this guy, Scott Stapp's got reverse tech at Northrop. I'm not saying they're a part of the NGOs. That's a different thing. What I'm saying is they all rely on these semiconductors. And those patents you just mentioned, apparently we're going to really upset the game in such a way that BlackRock's future tech profile iShares, you can go look it up, which exists. I think it's was it NXP was one of the semiconductor makers, but there's several of them. But they also got NVIDIA companies that their bread and butter is AI. Which what do they rely on? Heavily semiconductors. ICBM revitalization, semiconductors. And there's things I don't even know about that because we know now everything is connected. Nothing is not. And when it's connected, what do you need? Semiconductors. So these guys were disappeared for exact reason you said. No one's asking the questions. No one's looking. And it's a billionaire's game. Black Rock versus Blackstone. Blackwater versus Blackstone Defense, whatever the hell it's called, right? Because what you got there is Blackstone actually has its own little mercenary company. And that's Schwartzman, I think, who's also on the board of directors at Blackstone, has that one. That Shadow War's right there. Tech, future of everything. I mean, think about it. We alone used to talk about in these rooms, if you had that kind of tech, we couldn't differentiate you from a god. Humans have that kind of tech now. What's that tell you? Yeah, I shit my pants. Shit, I did. I just had to change them like 3 hours ago. The more I read, the more I find. I'm like, oh my God,
Michael
this
Strapp.
is 100% legit. And it's power and greed. Old fashioned human bullshit. Not even for cool shit, like because you want to live forever, time travel across the power and greed. The killer. Hate to sound all Alex Jonesy and shit, but I'm sorry, dude. It's there. It's all right there. Anything I said tonight, you guys can go right now if you know how to research and find out public record. It all points in the same direction. Then you also take the fact that I know the text exists, and I also knew NGOs had the tech, and the tech that they had was scary. Shadow War. These other things all led me. I didn't know about MH370, had no clue. And then when I first watched Ashton's videos, shout out again, you should watch them. Suddenly, one more puzzle piece just started smacking me around like, holy shit, this was my dudes. These were the guys. These are the guys that I've been dealing. Bam, just right there like that. And I actually reached out to him. And I talked to him. I told him I'd help him any way I could, man. Sources, whatever I could do to get him information or feed mine into it. Because again, as we're sitting, we're your pros. No one will talk about this subject. Hell, most media that'll even cover UFOs are definitely not going to cover this. So we're your pros. So actually, throw me a tip, throw him a tip if you want to. You don't have to. You can donate to Wounded Warrior. I'd prefer that, but I know. Just like anybody else. What's up, Sue?
So what about the orbs? The Blackwater, whatever, whoever.
The orbs?
Yeah,
What about
the
'em?
orbs
What do you
that
want to
were
know?
who was
Well, we need
controlling.
somebody like Roy up here to explain everything because most of this stuff is so sciencey. The only thing I can tell you about him is by watching them and watching what was on the video, what you were seeing wasn't a heat signature coming out of the front per se because of an exhaust or anything like that. It's just the warp bubble that was actually having to compress space-time in front of the vehicle. And so behind it's pushing it, excelling it forward. That's why you get, looks like it's frontward exhaust and it's going forward. So I hope you guys, I don't know if that makes sense, but that's one of the
Yeah.
other things that just kind of like that makes, all this stuff. So these orbs, Sue, I don't know what they are, if they come from a craft, if we have a gun that shoots fucking orbs. What I'm
Mm,
saying is these orbs, what they've done is apparently because again, they have a warp bubble, a gravity drive, combined are able to use said gravity. Let's take the Cosgrove mirror's torsion, use that gravity to transport matter and people. It's not a far-fetched thing to think that we can do that and NGOs can do that because they're funded, highly funded. We really did that. Think about Montauk. If you want to go talk about the Philadelphia experiment, those are real events on first attempts using gravity, magnetism, things like that. So we've started off a long time ago. Problem is, we stopped kind of funding them the way they should be, but NGOs were getting the same tech, and we were paying them to reverse engineer that tech to give us some shitty shit while they kept the good stuff. That's what's happened. What's up, Shy?
Hello, you. Well, look, I had a good look at that video, and I've got thoughts and feelings and thinkings, but they're not. I'm not a smart ass, so I don't really want to sort of put those thoughts forward exactly. But do you not think that those orbs look ever so like those Tic Tacs? they've just got a look about them that looks very similar to the Tic Tacs, and that we've already seen and have been identified by actual military people. They look, if I were to believe the video and accept the video was bang on, yeah, they look like three orbs from a Tic Tac, and that they look like they were manoeuvring around the vehicle, that they were manoeuvring around to create, okay, for want of a better word, an energy portal. That's as far as I can go down that road because I'm not fucking smart enough. But flipping smart enough. Sorry, I'm not flipping smart enough. But I am smart enough to know that, you know, all of those people disappeared and they're gone. That did happen. How that came to be, well, I'm fully up for the. I'm sorry, but I fully believe in the pattern theory myself. But that's because I'm all about the physicists having disappeared on there. But um, the the things that you're saying are bang on the money, and that's the scariest part, but also the brilliant part. Because I don't know, you tend to get these people that in the end just become too scared to tell the truth. And whilst I am convinced that the videos are the videos, I'm not sure about them yet. You can't make me say things like that. Did you, by the way, see that debunking thing from Mexico that was in Spanish that was basically saying, "Hello, you. I'm just like to say, we made the videos and we did it as an example of what we thought MH370 would look like, and but it's been debunked in terms of that letter's sort of come out of nowhere and doesn't really come with receipts. In as much as I could sit now and write something and just put it on an anonymous site, none of that comes with receipts. But I wondered, had you seen any of it? Oh, shush.
So thank you, Astral, for just joining us again. You're the worst co-host ever. I regret thanking you earlier. I will say this, that it doesn't come with receipts, but what I saw matches everything that I already knew and makes sense from my other investigations and research. Matter of fact, the Tic Tac thing and the orbs, or the tick, that makes sense as well. Because again, just go back to all the different things that people have said about Tic Tacs. We know the people. Things that I've actually posted about the reverse engineering craft and all that. Now I'm wondering if that's what they were in. Because here's the other thing I haven't talked about yet. And so I'll tell you this. I know who crashed in Alaska. And if you want to know, you got to retweet the space. Astral, take over real quick. I'll be right back.
Oh, you are such a knowledge tease. I was so there. You said Alaska, the magic words. You little tease.
Well, Astral's the worst co-host ever. He's just going to hang out co-host, and he's going to try to
uh,
siphon my... Wait, he's got 15,000 followers. I got 4. Well, I don't know what he's trying to do, but he's just sitting in here. Astral, you were there.
Yeah, sorry, I'm teaching my son how to throw a slider right now, honestly. Sorry.
You better teach him how to dodge Blackwater's freaking portal guns.
but I only look. I don't know that they're Tic Tacs. I just think they look like all of the Tic Tacs and all of the abilities Tic Tacs are said to have, and they look like them. And by the way, that trail you see coming off of them that's black, that's not heat. Astonishingly, that's cold coming off of them. So whatever they're doing
From
it cold
compression,
fusion. They're doing
right?
it cold fusion styly. Yeah.
Dude, that's right. And hey, guys, retweet the space, and I'll say this. The same people who were involved in the MH370 takedown are the same ones that were crashed in Alaska, shot down in Alaska. Matter of fact, there's a reason several people within our Congress and government are calling conspiracy. Some of them know what I know. Fact. So imagine being a congressman or woman knowing there are civilians that can take your ass as a government out if they wanted to, that you've been paying to cheat you. So basically, everything that we've got was fed to them, and then we're, instead of reverse engineering good stuff, we got the shit. And they kept all the good stuff. And it's not one company, right? They all probably have their secrets, and they keep feeding themselves, and they can keep progressing on these different things. But it's the Shadow War. The Shadow War is Black Rock and Blackwater, their assassination group, versus Blackstone. All these all this is about is the MH370 we've all talked about. Now, again, I'm just going to rehash real quick. The MH370 was taken down for semiconductors. Something about those semiconductors. Again, around the time it went missing, BlackRock lost money in its futures portfolio for future tech. And that's semiconductors and AI, which are both AI is reliant on semiconductors. United States government currently and projecting this future projects are all reliant on semiconductors, AI, all the connectedness. We have generals pushing ICBM revitalization, old ICBM revitalization. Yeah, they're old. That's going to require semiconductors. So when I say a shadow war, it's for greed and shit, but not old fashioned greed. You're already the fourth branch of the government. If you lose that semiconductors right there, Blackstone would have just cleaned house. The power you have and the money you have allow you. You're essentially not just the fourth branch of the government. You're the first branch of the world, the NWO. That's essentially what it is, a privatized NWO. No stopping. What do you got, Sue?
Didn't one of the physicists or scientists or whoever had these patents, didn't one not get on the plane?
I do not know some of this stuff, Sue. So apparently, either you're a CIA plant trying to throw me off or give me information. You could be a good guy, or you're just smart. So
I've got
talk me through it.
I got my security clearance, you know. I just got it again. I always have to get it because of my ex-husband. So I'm
Go
a
ahead,
good guy.
give it to me. Tell me what you said. So someone
Okay.
didn't get on the plane. Do you have
One
a
of
name or a link?
No, because this has been going on for so long. I just kind of absorbed it all, and just thinking, oh, that's interesting. Oh, wow, I don't have. Plus, my mind is mush. I'm sorry. I just been through so much. It's mush. But I could swear that one of them didn't get on the plane, and for some reason, I think there's some relation with him and something.
Damn you, Sue. Now I'm going to cross reference everybody and everything. Oh, this rabbit hole. So
It
check
just
it out.
came to me. I knew there was something. I knew someone was there was an odd one of the physicists physicists where was a
Say it
there was
again,
something about them.
physicist. Say it again,
Physicist
Sue.
physicist physicist. Anyway, um, yeah, and I swear one did not get on the
I'm
plane.
going to look into that though, Sue. So now look at it. And since we're talking about,
Ashton would know.
okay, I'll reach out to Ashton as well, actually, to find out because one of the key points and all, like, example is I think BlackRock owns NXP is the name of the company I mentioned earlier. I think I butchered the name. And what they use is freaking LDMOS fab and internal manufacturing to make some specific chips, right? So I don't know all about this stuff, man. I'm not science. ITAR compliant. It's things that are so far above my pay grade, and yet I'm here because no one else will talk about it. But again, when everything, and I'm not talking about minimal amounts. Think about it, guys. Where are we at now? We can't walk down the streets without picking our phone up to see what's going on. We can't do anything without being connected in any way and being, part of this stuff. Our government, everything they've used to produce that's old, will be replaced with something that uses a semiconductor. Bet. Everything right now that is planned involving AI or interconnectedness, which there's everything in the United States government, will be using semiconductors, contracts in billions, and power beyond belief. I mean, power like no one's ever seen before, obviously, but it's got to be for them to do what they were doing, right? Billions upon billions, which will feed more tech upon tech, which also brings you into what? You're literally just the NWO, but privatized. Wait, I don't know why I just thought Saudi Arabia. Oh shit. Hold up, bro. Astral, take over real quick. We're not, Astral. You're the best co-host ever,
Sorry,
dude.
we're going through the intricacies of a curveball versus slider.
Dude, I'm messing with you. Be a dad. I don't give a shit. It's fine. Chrissy, would you like to entertain everybody while I have to look something up real
Hey,
quick?
Chrissy, what's up?
My tingle's going off.
No, I'm just sitting here. You were cutting out every now and then, and someone told me to just come on up and be a speaker so that I could hear you. So I have nothing to say. I don't know what's going on.
Hey, story of my life. Story of my life. I don't ever know what's going on. The only
I
time
don't
I know
think
what's
anybody really knows what's going on, but I think people, once they get into this and they get a little bit more researched and they find out that there's ways, for me, I think one of the keys for me is that there's that experiential part of this where you can actually explore this, whether it's through things like remote viewing or CE5 or going out and doing a sighting. But I think a lot of people are like expecting things to be brought into them like a silver spoon. But there's ways that you can go out and explore this yourself.
Tell them those ways. Tell them. I actually just did a tweet today about connecting the consciousness, things like that. Tell them.
Well, I think ESP, just like looking into synchronicities, for me, there's four ways in which I feel like there's opportunity for you to personally explore this topic if you, look into it and go through some of the practices historically. And that's remote viewing is number one. Number two is dreams. So logging your dreams, like precognitive dreams or lucid dreaming. Number three is through out of body experiences, the Gateway Project, through like things like astral projection, going through different practices like that. And then number four is through like non human intelligence, like the things like DMT, and other people talk about experiences like abductions and different things like that sort. So I do feel like there's a lot of ways to actually explore it yourself.
My brain works like a Google search. I'm listening, and then all of a sudden something pops up that I remember about the whole situation. And that's why I brought up that the physicist that didn't get on the plane.
I know that's why you did, Sue. I
It
also
just
know that you're a government agent.
yeah. Yeah, I wish.
Yeah. No, you don't.
No, I
No,
don't.
you don't wish that.
Well, then I could snatch you.
Oh, what the? You bad. Damn, Sue, you just changed the whole vibe in this room straight to perv.
No.
All right. You know what, Sue? I'm glad you're here, though, and I'm glad that you're kicking cancer's ass anyway.
Thank you,
I
honey.
couldn't do it. I'm pretty big pussy. That's for damn sure. No doubt. Sorry to use that word, people, but I cry when I'm in pain, so I'm proud of you.
Thank you, sweetie.
Sorry, guys. I'm actually looking for names. I'm trying to figure out. I should be more prepared, and I'll do that when I get to my next destination to go. I'm gonna go stay with some family. So once I get there, I'll be feel a little more comfortable, have internet and shit that probably works or something, and I'll be able to kind of do. I think this is what I'm supposed to do. Keep doing this shit. As you see, I feel like I'm blossoming like a butterfly right now. Just
No hints where you're going. Keep it on the low down.
I'm going to Sue's house.
That's
Whatever
right.
you do, don't hurt Sue. No, ain't nobody coming after you, Sue. We should have met up when I was in Boston that last time. We didn't even know each other then.
We didn't know each other.
I know.
Now we're on opposite ends of
Oh,
the
I'll be back to Boston eventually. I mean, assuming the apocalypse doesn't happen and shit, right?
well, yeah. Well, come find me if the apocalypse happens. I need help.
Damn, Sue, you don't give up. I give you. You know what? That's why I love you. You make me feel good as hell. I tell you that. But I am a dumpster fire that is rolling through a hurricane that someone just took a giant dump on. So you want to steer clear of me. Trust me.
Yeah, but those are the people those are my people. Those are those are the
You're
people
fucking crazy.
in
What's
my
up,
whole
Taylor?
life have turned to me and wanted help, and I've helped them. So I just like talking to you anyway.
I love hearing you talking. I'm glad you're here. I still remember when I met you. I still do in these spaces. Matter of fact,
Yeah.
everyone I know. Matter of fact, everyone I know, that dating anything like that, I've met from UFO Twitter. And I'm dating a freaking
Old Vet Symposium throwback,
Yeah,
baby.
that's right, old vets. Yeah, dude. Good times. Actually,
I
you know
don't
what
think
I give
people
people?
know though. Like that's the problem. And like Old Vet Symposium, like got this shit started. I and you know what? The very honestly, dude, the very first time I saw it, I had no idea it was a UFO space. And then when I joined, I was like, holy shit! There's like 40 people that are talking about this shit. I was like, this is fucking awesome.
Yep. Now there's 45 of us total in the world. But no, but no, legit. Like I started in these spaces, and I'm gonna say it because I don't give a fuck, right? Only reason I started was I was hanging out in spaces with a Tupacabra, and he would help let me do co-host and shit. And I'm thankful as hell because this is actually my niche. Everyone finds something in their life that they're good at, they like. Dude, if this could be my job, I'd be happy for the rest of my life. Not because I want it, I don't need it to be my job. I'm good at it. I enjoy it. And shit, we all know I can talk. So it's one of those type of things, right? So that's why I keep doing it. And you're right, spaces are actually kind of my favorite. Podcasts are cool, I guess. It's not easy for me. I'm not comfortable all the time. But what I like and what makes me comfortable is talking to other people about it, interacting. I'd kill to have a call-in radio show or something like that because I'm my best when I can talk and answer questions or just interact as opposed to just telling you a fucked up story, right? Because I prefer to relate to you, and that way you can understand why it's important, why it's not. And that's far easier if we're talking instead I'm talking to you or at you, I mean. So I'd rather talk to you. But
No, how many? I mean, how many times have you watched a podcast and fucking started screaming out the question that you wanted to ask the person like 10 times? Like almost like every podcast that I watch. But
can I tell you a
Spaces is
secret?
actual a part where like you can actually get up and ask the person a question, even if it's like a question that you've been dying to ask for years. We had a space with like Ross Colhart, and people who were able to come up and ask questions that they've been trying to ask for years, but just haven't had the platform to do that.
Okay.
Taylor, what's up?
Shane, I got a resource just for you, but I think everyone else is also going to find it valuable. So it's a tool that I found called Perplexity AI. And what it does is combines internet searching and the language processing, ChatGPT. So right now, ChatGPT, it's trained on a data set and it can't read web pages for you unless you use like another plugin, and then it can read something and tell you about it. But Perplexity AI just does that automatically. So it's meant for basically browsing the web. You search your topic, you're like MH370, blah, 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 this certain thread, this obscure thing that you heard about, but now you need to find the links because, somebody read a couple things on Reddit and then they compressed it into an obscure statement that they gave to you on a Twitter space. So it's like, okay, I want to find that. So Perplexity AI, it'll search for you. It'll read like 10 web pages. It'll summarize the options. It'll give you the sources so you can click on it, the individual searching. So it's a super great tool. I think this is the way the internet is going.
That's
Just
sick, dude. Can like scrub the shit and then show you the
Check
sources
this
and
out.
best sources of the provided what you're asking them. That's fucking sick.
Well, check this out. Look, now, one of the things I won't apologize for, and it sounds cocky, but I'm not. It's my ADHD. Most people can't keep up with me when I'm talking about this amount of research, whatever you want to call it. I have conversations with AI that I learn more from than anything. And by that, I say, like, I'll have a conversation with ChatGPT, and I'm not having it produce shit that I can copy and paste. I'm having it answer, help me spitball, find sources, new information, things like that, come up with things, right? I'll bounce things back and forth. And one of the things you can do if you start tinkering with it, you can go into the custom instructions. I think it's maybe paid only. Once you start realizing, okay, what you are, how you work, and what you're actually looking for, you can put those custom instructions in there, and it does that, Taylor. I'll check that out actually as well, because again, one of the things that I really value is the fact that I can ask a question, usually misspelled, because Astral knows me, and this shit will actually understand and then get me and then follow that path. Whereas most other people, gosh, it sounds like I'm a cocky dick, and I'm not. I spend so much time doing this, guys, all my time, right? It's just walking people from A to B. So sometimes what I do is this: I'll start talking, I'll get way ahead of myself, like everyone should know. It's not that I think they should know, it's just because, well, shit. that's all I do is think and talk and read and research about this. So that's what that is about. I put time and effort into it. That's why I also have trouble with people calling grifters and things like that. I put every bit of my disability into this, and I'm a combat veteran, disabled combat vet. I don't care. I do it every day because again, I pay for programs and things that help me answer my own questions. And I'm actually, here's what's super wild. I still don't understand what's going on. I can feel myself being propelled forward, funneled somewhere to family, things like that, places that I need to be. Felt like I'm in these places because of it, and I still have no idea what I'm dealing with. Can't explain it, but the more I do talk about it, because again, I started talking about nuts and bolts. Took me a minute to start talking about the esoteric the properties of this, what the woo or metaphysics may mean. Like that's where I'm at now, and the more I talk to individuals and other individuals that are able to kind of, I guess, discuss these things, or maybe they're the ones too that when they're looking for something, they open a book and they're just at that page, or they go to where they need to see exactly what they need to see. And pieces of the puzzle
Dude,
often
or
come
like
to
connecting the dots of like, I know a lot of people come on here and they're like, I'm in a certain area, like I'm in Washington or I'm in Florida, but I'm looking for ways to contribute. If there was a place to be like, this is what's happened in your vicinity, like you can go there and contribute to the research. Like people would be willing to do that, to be like, oh shit, like I'll go monitor this place, like for activity, for that's been notorious. It doesn't have to be Skinwalker Ranch. It can be different places around the US that have reported sightings or reported paranormal activity. I think that the more that it's out there, that like people are going out there and exploring and like contributing, whether it's like their sighting or just, if it's a bullshit experience, if they go out there and there's nothing happening out here, guys, like I was out here for 5 nights in a row and like nothing's happening. Like that is valuable, just as valuable if somebody goes out and like has something happen. I think the people that are willing to go out and contribute to the research is more important than ever. And people are more willing to do that now. But I think the avenue to like kind of gather all that data together and be like, this is what's happening, this is what people are doing, like this is the research that's being done. Like there's not a lot of that happening.
I no, I agree with you 100%. I don't think people, I think it's like this. People want to complain and say people are grifters, or Linda Moulton Howe did this, Greer did that. And yes, they have value. They can do that. But I'm saying take each thing they are discussing on its own merits. Don't put it on that person, because if something happens, there is no place for people to go with that evidence that isn't tainted by disinformation and made to look like a fool. So that that wasn't them. What other journalists have to deal with that? Think about it. When you're doing a story, not only do you have to focus on the story, what's real in that story, you have to worry about people coming to you to give you bullshit to mess up said story. That doesn't happen anywhere else. So to hold people for mistakes that were, look, I get that you don't like that they asked for money for discs or this or that, then don't fucking buy it. That's my point, right? We're literally a country that is capitalism, bitching about people who've been helping us for doing capitalism. Now, that being said, it's one thing to say, I've got these discs, buy them, and it's got UFO shit. It's another thing to say, hey guys, pay me and I'll show you UFOs and then the fake shit. No names
Well,
need to
I
be
think
said.
too, like I can speak to this personally, like people, like how they get acquainted or informed about the phenomenon, you are not necessarily tied to forever to that. So for me, like I got interested in UFOs originally with Billy Meyer. Like Billy Meyer's a very famous case and it's been hoaxed and it's like fucking, like elementary school pictures that he took it of. But that doesn't discount the fact that like that's what got me interested in it. Like I am not going to stand here and fucking stick my flag on the ground and say Billy Meyer was truthful, because I know that a lot of the evidence that's come out hasn't been. But that's been what's got me interested in the field. And I think people have to realize that once they get in, whether what it is that got you interested, you don't have to tie yourself directly with, the people or the person that's originally got you interested in the field, because a lot of, people have controversies around that.
So look, we got to work. People aren't perfect. If we're going to keep taking our data and filtering it based on the imperfect person that brings that data forward, you're not doing it right. We're going to have to say, hey, Jacobs did this, but you know what? He said this. Let me research that to see what that says and what that means to this situation. Same thing with Ike. Because I say the name, I shouldn't have to worry about saying Ike and everyone saying, oh my God, he's a Nazi. That stuff has to stop. We should be able to parse information and have a conversation without people pointing things like that, which are the actual things that stop disclosure. It's disinformation. It's noise. Just like that motherfucker ain't real. That stuff starts getting targeted, highlighted, brought up, because that takes attention away from David Grush, all this other stuff, right? Or like Peru, not saying they're not real, the Peru aliens. Either way, they overhype things. Or we talk about what's the South America country right now being attacked? It's probably gold miners. They've been doing that shit for a minute, and they use freaking what are they called? Uh, Hoverboards. This is where we're at, man. So that kind of stuff gets promoted by agents. Agents, and I'd like to say thank you and welcome. Do me a favor, any of you CIA guys in Dry House, NSA, retweet this space for me. Hashtag CIA. So they're here. They interact with us. They're often people we have no clue are part of it. This group, our group. They sway the conversation in ways you won't understand, you will never be prepared for because they know you. They've been watching everything you put on fucking Twitter, on every other social media, and then they see, wait, this person has a little sway. They know what they're saying. Let me see how I can help them or help my situation. So what they do is they cause drama, problems. They take attention away from things that they don't want attention on, and they bring attention to things that they need it on, right? So both sides are here. I'd like, again, welcome, guys, and thank you both sides for being a part of my life. So please tip me, CIA, NSA, anybody that's been using my ass. I appreciate it. Except for you, girl. You know who you are. You can use me all day long. So go ahead, Astral. Guess that was a fucking horrid joke, huh? That reminds me, though, I do want to say this. Actually, right now, I don't listen to any podcast. Nothing interests me. One podcast, Klaus and Garrett's. No shit. Astral, I'm going to list that. So take over. There's one podcast talking about stuff that's important. Klaus and Garrett's. If I could do a podcast, if I wasn't a failure on most things like this, right? That's exactly what I would do. That's the information that people need, and they have it. It's important. And that's how I get here. I actually get pieces from them to further mine. So if you're not following, Garrett, put it in here and I'll put it up in the Megatron if you don't mind, or if not, I'll get to it. But it's super important. Klaus and Garrett, and it's, oh, I know the name of it too. Patterns Tell Stories. There we go. So check that shit out. I'll post it in here. And it's important because, again, when I come up here and talk, a lot of times I think I get disregarded because I probably do sound like a crazy man. But there's certain people that I watch, listen to because they have information. They do their research, and oftentimes that information, because all this overlaps, helps me or intertwines. So, yeah, the Klaus, if you're not following them, people in this space, speakers, co hosts, you should give them a follow. Astral was talking about earlier, I started these spaces, doing spaces just as a way to cope and deal with my phenomena, right? Yakima Valley, whatever I was dealing with. Didn't understand it. Kind of experiencer type groups, just talking about it. Continued doing them, graduated to podcast, reporter, Roswell Daily Record, and now the Ryan Leaf of UFO reporters. So, I just keep doing me. No football fans, you guys all suck, man. You make me feel like I am not funny or
Go
you guys just
Dolphins.
can't laugh. I knew Sue would laugh. Sue, stop placating me. So, all right, guys. So here's what we're going to do. Right now, we can talk about anything. Doesn't have to be MH370, but if you have questions, ask them. If I can't answer them, doesn't mean it doesn't help me, because sometimes you ask me a question my hunch goes off and I follow that shit, or I hear something and it goes. So do that. If not, let's talk about UFOs, UAPs, anything esoteric. Astral, did you see that paper I posted in our private DM group? Matter of fact, Astral's part of a collective of UAP, UFO metaphysics
Oh God.
DM group, the Unmajestic 12. Yeah, we were the Unmajestic 12. Well, I think there's like 9 of us now because we're Unmajestic. But the point being is we just sit in there and bullshit and talk about things like this. The other day I posted in there talking about Sacerdotal Knights of National Security.
It's the group that inadvertently leaked David Grush
Yes,
and caused
family, right?
controversy
Look,
within the UFO
I get those
field.
guys. I get that group of individuals. Matter of fact, I feel like I've been looking for I thought it was an aviary or something along those lines. And here's what's super, super weird. I was having a conversation with someone about my research, trying to find individuals because again, I find myself being going Scott Andrews, shit, all that way, right? I'm gonna say that way. And here I am having these conversations, and I'm like, man, I don't even know if this group exists. And I feel myself trying to find this group of individuals. And then the very next day, I see a post about the Sacred Odal Knights of National Security. I said, oh shit, that's the group I'm talking about that I'm looking for. Wrong name, right group. So that's where I'm going, Bryce.
Well, I
Hopefully,
think
I can
too, like
interview something.
there's been multiple occasions where information has come out from bigger names, people in the field that frame it as breaking news, but it was posted on UFO Twitter or like Twitter like a couple of weeks before. So like people, I feel like a lot of the time people are very well researched on Twitter. And when whether we talk about people who are presenting evidence or I think that's one of the real things that I like to see is like a sort of like crowdsourcing approach. So I always encourage people, like, if you have a sighting or if you have evidence, if you have a video, like, just post it. Like, who cares if it's proven to be ordinary or mundane? That's okay. But I think the more that we can, like, in real time be able to analyze this stuff in one space. um Last year it was a case where there were multiple people in like LA where that were sightings, and they were like, I didn't know where to go to like talk about what I was seeing right now, and multiple people were on the same space talking about the same sighting. And I think that right there tells you that the value is there of like being able to analyze things in real time, and a platform to do that. Vibe
Way,
killer.
way to pick up the slack, man. Man, you just impressed me. Actually, I was posting Garrett and Klaus's podcast. And it's up in the nest as well. So again, Pattern Tell Stories. If you're not already following it, the only thing that really matters. I mean, I can be. Look, I ain't gonna lie. I get jealous as fuck sometimes because I can take in information like a pro, but when I put it out, apparently I'm not getting it out properly because I don't think people understand. And I get it, ADHD and all my trauma and problems. So I'm working on that, trying to relay the information that I get in, but they do. And they do it so well. And they do it with the information that I love. Matter of fact, some of that information I love so much, I'm not going to shit you. I went ahead and did. I reached out to Jack Safardi and I asked to be put on his email list
God.
because he emails information like this kind time travel shit, things like that. And he said, yes. I don't even know if I was supposed to talk about it. Probably get kicked out the first day, but love it. It's like, that's just more pieces to a puzzle for me. I'm answering my own questions. And I don't know, kind of like when I was in the military, being a part of something that's bigger than myself. And this is so much bigger than just the military because this is just a whole thing. And I actually posted the other day, I know today, how scary would it be if you guys had to take the time to think about the fact that if NGOs, aerospace defense companies, have this reverse engineered tech that's out there, right? That I say, so just craft, we'll say craft. All they have to do is show themselves a little more and make themselves look a little aggressive. And then what happens? We got hostile aliens. Defense budgets go up. Who gets more money?
Yo, I want to speak on something though, because I think that someone like Jack Sarfati and
He's a time traveler, by the way.
look, bro, if you've got information in which you feel is beneficial to humanity in terms of physics or whatever, and you are trying to relay that information, like make it digestible, like present it in a way in
Wait,
which.
Astro, hold up. I have a feeling that you haven't talked to Jack.
Oh, I've talked to him in
Did you say make
DMs.
it presentable? Jack Safari, I can promise everyone here, he's going to be Jack. Ain't going to be shit you're going to do to change what he says or does. But I'll
But
say
that's
that
what I'm saying
I
though. Like
know
it like
that's what I feel,
you
Jack.
can fucking spam your fucking shit all day. Nobody's going to take you seriously until you're able to present it in a way which people are actually able to understand it. So if you're saying like I have the
So
answers,
what you're
I
saying is I'm a
fucking know
less smart
everything.
Jack. That's what I was just telling you. This guy is a genius. The information he has is valid. And you're right. I'm not arguing that. Matter of fact, I always find it funny as hell when I post and Jack pops in. Right. And hey, thanks, Jack. Because again, what I'm telling you is this. I just told you I can take information in and it's real and put things together, but I have a difficult time getting it out. So imagine discarding the stuff I say because of that. Same thing with Jack, man. And he's absolutely the intelligence. I could just told you he's a time traveler. Now I'm like, you think I'm joking, but the brain on this guy, the stuff he's talking about, I just ordered another book that it's basically so how physics or how what was it? How hippies say physics book back in the day. This is like I'd say a sequel, but this is actually basically the Jack Safari story. So I just ordered that time traveling, paranormal phenomena, and UFOs, all that's physics, all that stuff in this book. And you are correctly saying some of us, and I think that was a shot at me, but you were saying, Jack, are having a problem relaying information to people and we're just holding it. I don't think it's in purpose because I think Jack, for a fact, all he wants is people to have that information. But when we're not on Jack's level, and I'm nowhere near Jack's level, and I still want his information because I like to mess with it, it's there. I get it. The only way he could fix that is if he used Chat GPT, and I'm not even fucking with you, and he put copy and pasted what he was going to type, and he posted that in Chat GPT, said, hey, science explain this, or layman's terms, or explain it for an idiot. It's just one of those things. And his brain's, I imagine, is thinking 1,000 miles per hour.
No,
Everybody's going,
we were talking about this in another space that basically like the top researchers in the field that are actually researching the topics that we're talking about, their main issue is marketing their research because they're so focused and like head down data driven of like producing that sort of thing. Like they're not worried about their website, their Twitter page, their thing. So they only have 150 followers. You know what I'm saying? And like so other people are reporting on their work and they're not able to accurately represent what they're actually doing because they're so focused on the actual research.
and you're talking about Shane. Matter of fact, today I'm going to brag. A little humble brag made me feel good. I sent some of this information about MH370 sources and things like that from the investigation. I said, like, this is what I'm chewing on. And I get back, holy shit, that brain, dude. What the? And that made me feel fucking good. But again, you just nailed it. Some of the top people, that's all I do. I'd rather sit here. I actually wish I had a handler that I could be like, this, and they could write all pretty or do their own thing or marketer. Because again, the information sources and things I have are all valid. Like Jack, I'm nowhere near as smart as him. So please, no one go to him and say that I'm saying that. Like him, I have a difficult time putting it back out there in a way that people can follow and understand. But I'm working on it because, again, I enjoy this shit. That's why I do spaces, though. Actually, lately, hell, I had a friend, Jared, told me yesterday. I don't know what this is supposed to mean about my previous spaces. He goes, you sound coherent as fuck. I can understand you. So that's good. That's great. And that's the thing that I always deal with because I get ahead of myself. So I do agree. The people that you need to pay attention to aren't out there promoting themselves oftentimes because it's not their cup of tea. Garrett, the Klaus, things like that. They're just researching, writing, putting shit out like me. I'm either putting out tweets or putting out podcast bullshit, or these spaces is really my butter, right? because I know the information needs out. And the reason I like these spaces is because I can use and post links to get people to follow me. But I actually still need a handler because I can't because my ADHD, if I stop talking, it's a shit show, man. A shit show here.
I volunteer to be a handler.
Oh, I knew you were going to say that too. You're
And
the best.
I do every time I come on, I absolutely retweet all your information
Oh, yeah. Oh,
every single time.
Sue, I can tell
Yeah.
you right now, I wonder sometimes if there's something mentally wrong with you because you're my biggest fan. I keep thinking, what is wrong with this woman?
Because when
But you're
the
awesome.
first space I came on, you were talking, and I liked your accent, I liked your voice, and I told you that I was deathly afraid of aliens, and now I've come full circle, and these spaces mean so much to me, especially in my situation in life. You guys are keeping me sane.
Oh, let me say it this way, Sue. The only people I talk to, even on my phone, on period. Matter of fact, I have roommates. I don't talk to them. I talk on here. I'm losing my mind here, and the reason I'm so excited to be going where I'm going, just family, just being around people that and it's like I'm losing my mind here. At my last place, same thing. And if it wasn't for the spaces, where else could I go that I could honestly talk to other people about the subject? I struggle now with talking face to face because there is a difference, and I've had it before where you talk face to face with other experiencers or have an experiencer group or round table and things like that. And it's seeing the way people look at you when they mention things or talk to things and seeing either fear or sadness or as they talk about things changes the whole dynamic and it makes it a little bit better, right? Because unless of course you can see somebody's looks, but that'd be just crazy, right? So point being is this is important, and that's why I like doing them. And I actually asked Astral, "Hey, won't you co-host with me or something along those lines?" It's just a place I can talk and I'm comfortable. And I also know that because this is what's super weird. I told someone the other day, the only reason I can now talk about like things like hunches or let's say the Star Kids or things like that is because I have someone that I actually can tell everything to about my hunches and shit like that without fear of being judged. Imagine that. So everything we already know about life, how hard it is. We have people that are different races, gay, straight, all these other things. And you add on top of that the inability to understand what's going on with you in your head. And then if you talk about it, the vast majority of people who are trained professionals or even friends will tell you it's a mental illness. You shouldn't talk about it. You need treatment, things like that. And it's really, really starting to piss me off that every time the UFO phenomenon comes in contact with me because of my past, everyone automatically says it's mental illness, it's this, it's that, or the other. And I'm like, what the fuck, dude? Now, trauma has something to do with it. I know that. And just because people, I also honestly think so many people follow their hunches without ever knowing they're doing it. People in power, things like that, they have this innate ability just do it, right? And they don't know that's what they're doing.
Yeah, I would never think that I'd be let's put it this way, less afraid of aliens and be involved in this community. But it went hand in hand with my diagnosis, and I would never think I'd ever have that either. So I belong here, I guess.
Here's another thing, Sue, that I've learned, and it's very important. So, everyone in this room right now, or tonight, or when you get a chance, send Sue some positive vibes. Manifestation's very, very real. So, you need to think about these things, being better, healing, things like that. Because, again, when I talked about the cause of mirrors earlier and how things were manifested in front of not just the experiencers, the people in front of during the experiment, people that were outside as witnesses. Manifestation, right? So, think about that, Sue. It's important. Have that good attitude. You're doing good shit. Everybody's sending good vibes tonight because that's all real. The interconnectedness, the consciousness, you've got all of this. And that's the thing. That's the big secret, if you ask me, that every one of us is connected to each other. On top of that, every atom in the universe is interconnected in some form or fashion. Different expressions of the same fucking thing. And we're being helped to, I guess, the end of this video game by some. And that's all the gifts are about. When I say gifts of the gods, I mean things like honeycomb materials, things that are just crazy and we use them the wrong way, such as the magenta UFO crash and nuclear material or energy, right? That's a thing. You can Google and Magenta UFO, Enrique Fermi, then you can Google Oppenheimer, and you'll start following a trail. So these were being given to us for a reason, and not about fighting and killing each other. Not saying war is not a thing that you have to, it's a reality. We're violent monkeys. Some of us aren't all well, and all we want is power and things. So the way most people do that is war. So you have to have self-defense, things like that. But I honestly believe in my head, and I can't, uh, I understand that I'm human, but you get to a certain point, you spend millennia alive as a species, technology after technology, and you're just going across what you call the universe, but consciousness. You're there at the final level. What do you do? If you killed, even if you killed yourself to the final level, what do you do? I don't imagine. I imagine finding a new game plan, figuring out something else. And that be to me is trying to get other people up here. Hell, even if it's just for new buddies to hang out with and drink some beer. I don't know. But what I'm saying is Thomas Colonel Thomas Bearden, the One Human Problem, discusses it time and time again. Hell, the Prometheus Project's a book. It talks about the same thing. And it's basically the Fermi paradox is us, the human form. That's a material thing. Bigelow talks about consciousness going on when you die to another. That's all the same thing. Did I lose anybody?
Bigelow.
Yeah, dude, Bigelow. Damn, man. Yeah, for real. Like life after death, all these things like we all talk about are intertwined.
That's what his focus shifted into, was basically the afterlife, near death experiences, channeling, mediumship, like information that was gained. And honestly, with a lot of the stuff that's happening recently, with around the world and wars and shit, it almost presents the question of, have remote viewers and intuitives, energy workers been receiving information from this event that's taking place right now? Like, is this the event where people have been getting information from?
The event being which? Sorry?
I guess the Israeli war,
I don't know,
like
man.
that
If
whole
that's the
shit that's
event,
going
I
down
I,
right
I have to
now,
say
of like,
this that again, if you go and read some of the different prophecies, and please by prophecies, I also mean, um, oh my lord, who's the famous old dude? God, somebody help me here. Used to come up with prophecies, the quatrains. Anyway, often his are cited because of the war breaks out in the Middle East. Who remembers that? It's an easy one. Okay, so one of the things I want you to focus on as well too is there was just an alarm that went off. It was a dual alarm. It was Russia and the United States. Two countries that are in a fucking proxy war that we're blowing money that our own people are killing each other over in Congress. Had a simultaneous alarm. Nostradamus. Thank you, Curious, my girl. Nostradamus. So thank you. Anyway, we had a simultaneous alarm with a country we're in a straight up proxy war and hate each other with. Why? I mean, what's the reason? Well, they know something we don't. What is that? Now, is it the fact that there's something coming, such as NHI? Let's say we proxy that like some people have said dates and things like that, or I've also heard because of the gifts from the gods that we receive, and because of treaties we receive, and the things we've said in those treaties that we would and would not do, and then still ended up doing. You got to pay a penance. Okay. I'll also say too that some of the things that I read point to something specific. And please, I'm not trying to catastrophize, or terrorize, or scare the shit out of anybody. A pole shift, something that's right there that no one quite understands that we think goes this way. But if it doesn't go that way, something changes drastically. And one of those things that happens is floods. What it'll do to the planet would surprise people if it's a full-on pole shift. Now, if it's a pole shift that takes time, say thousands of years, and it's just ticking down, we, as a species, you move with it. But if it does, just a pole just shifts. You need to think about what that would entail. What all of that would entail as it shifted. Tsunamis like you've never seen. And then I imagine the planet will be vomiting, volcanoes, things like that. A whole shit show that you've heard where? Revelations, places, time. Again, there were civilizations before us. What happened to them? What happened to everything that they had? And why is so much of it buried? Even the minimal amount we find that's old is buried. You dig deeper, I bet you find more. There's some that probably doesn't exist because, again, we know we live on a world that it's continuously just moving, eating shit up, burying it, bringing it up, doing those kind of things, right? So I actually tell you this, that I had my legacy source, the individual that was in the programs back in the day, told me a long time ago, first, there's structures on the moon. It was in his opinion, an advanced civilization from Earth put said structures on the moon. And again, he thinks a lot of this might be that. So I'm not saying it's that. But what I'm saying is I've had multiple people say, we're not the first technologically advanced civilization. What happened to the others? And the one that sticks in my head again is something like a pole shift. The amount of time, the time frame, what it would do, where everything would go. So kiss your families and happy thoughts, guys. Oh, you're definitely dead, Event. I didn't even know you were in here. You're definitely dead, dude. And look, take everything I say with a grain of salt. Like everything I post it for a reason. I see it. I think it's important. Use your filters. That's all I ask. If you can piece things together, do that. But don't live today like you're going to literally, the world's not worth living because it's going to end tomorrow. You should live today like it's going to end tomorrow and you don't have any more days, right? There's two options there because you can live today like it's a shit show. What's the point? Tomorrow's not even here. What the fuck is that? That's quitting before the game's over. Not done, right? I'm not. So keep on, man. Don't let anything I tell you scare you, make you freaking shit your pants because
Yeah,
that's the
sounds
kind of stuff that.
lovely.
Yeah, man. Don't shit your pants, guys. And just so you know, it's the likelihood of something like that happening is probably 100%, but I'll say 99. No, I don't know any of this. I'm saying prepare ourselves. The things we hear, revelation. There's probably some truth, kernels of truth to all of this. Why was the Bible written the way it was about the things it was? Is all of it true? I wouldn't say that, but I'd say there's probably some kernels of truth in there. With David Grush talks about religion and the fact that it's a veil over the eyes of humanity. All part of this, right? Keeps it hidden. If you don't know the supreme beings, you have access to them directly. Now think about this. I actually read somewhere. I'm not good on this because I'm not a religious person. One of the things that was left out of the Bible was supposedly that by Jesus, actually. He talks about you don't need a church to worship me. It's the same thing. What happens to religion if you can connect directly with that third rail consciousness, the faceless whites, whatever you want to call them? Doesn't mean all hell breaks loose.
One of the funny shits to me, it just personally is that when people describe David Grush, his peers, which people in the military, very respected individuals, describe him as beyond reproach. And I posted about this today. Like, do you feel like he's beyond reproach? And if you look beyond reproach up, it's basically like perfect record, like you don't question that individual. Like for me, I couldn't even say I'm beyond reproach like in the last week. And people are saying this about this person in his career.
Bro, check
I,
this out. Beyond reproach, I couldn't even tell you if I was beyond reproach in the adult things I was supposed to do
yesterday,
today. Like brush my teeth, take a shower, not hurt some shit, right? But I'll tell you this, being where I'm at, knowing what I know, 1,000%, David Grush is beyond reproach with everything he's talking about. And I don't just know that because because he said it here. What I do is I know it from research. I know it from piecing that together with sources. And I also know from Well, let's just say for a fact that if you take my tweet, right? The United States government works differently. One of the things I get really frustrated about is no one's really paying attention to what David Grush was doing, his job, and how that implies everything works, right? Instead, they want to talk about the things he's saying, and they use that to imply his mental status. Well, if you go in and you know how the military works at all, you understand. For one, you have a chain of command. You break that chain of command in any way, which an IG complaint is technically breaking said chain of command. You can be brought up on charges, not just civilian. You're in the military. You can go to fucking prison for stupid shit, adultery, stupid shit, right? What he's doing would be considered treason. What he's doing, not just lying to his superiors, lying to an IG, lying to an SSO, all these other different things that he's got in his chain of command that he's told this story to that has continued to propel itself forward. Okay, that's event number 2. When he was attached to the article with the Washington Post, there was guys, that Eric Davis leak, that was for reason, man. They needed people, which they obviously don't, to understand what an SSO was, how that played into this, and how that vetted David. But no one paid attention. No one really cared. They just thought, oh, way to fuck it up, Eric. No, it was intentional. They wanted people to say, oh, an SSO, special security officer. That's what Doty used to do. They needed someone to be able to say, dude, it's right there. Vet it yourself, which is what I've been doing. But again, I'm like Jack, not as smart. No one pays attention. So that alone, he had a special security officer attached to him at the Washington Post article. And he was saying, checks out, checks out, checks out. Special security officer knows where all the bodies are buried. He's responsible for security and I guess information that goes in and out of those programs, the safety and all these different programs, right? So that was attached there. You have David's IG complaint, which we've all seen. I think I posted it as well. You file an IG complaint, you better have your game ready, right? You fill it full of lies, you're going to be in some shit. Now, we propel that forward. Anyone in this room thinks a man makes it to sit before Congress on television without any of those individuals checking any of said story? You should probably think about going to another country because you don't know shit about your own. So the fact that he was on TV talking to these individuals about said, and the fact that he's got Tim Burchett, Gates, don't care about what you think about these individuals politically. Pick your poison. Do you want disclosure or do you want Republicans back in or Democrats? Me, right now, I need disclosure. So that's another way. The people on the team, I'll tell you right now, I don't know this. Those guys know what I know. That's why there's Burchett, guarantee that's why he's saying it's a cover up. They know what I know. So you don't get to where you're at. You don't have the people on your side, and you don't sit before Congress with a load of lies, bullshit that in no way can be proven and no one can look at. What we're looking at is this. We're looking at a set of truths that is so classified and black and gray that even Congress is having a bitch of a time seeing any of it. So yes, David Grush is probably more legit than anyone we've heard talk about this subject yet. He's the only one that had to put his job, the United States government job, on the line, his freedom on. Essentially, put it this way: well, what's that one? Kelsey, the one that leaks secrets, ended up going to jail. I don't remember about the whole Assange thing, right? That's what fucking happens, unless you're not lying, right? He put this shit together in such a way that I don't I couldn't do it. I can promise you this, like people want to sit and talk shit about David for not being at combat that PTS. Are you kidding me, dude? Throw me in combat every day of the week. Having the United States government and every contractor and special operator on your ass for the biggest secret known to humans is the most. I'm literally freaking out, and I'm probably a nobody, and there's no reason to freak out. Hell, I just told Ashton, I said, just be careful, dude. You motherfucker kill anybody, obviously. Just disappear. And he's probably like, we're good. Yeah, I freak out a little bit. This dude's taking the pressure of the world. Half the world think he's crazy, half being assholes. All for what? To disclose a truth that most of us aren't even ready for. Yeah, dude. David's the most legit person, the only person that you can vet with legitimacy through what he's done and where he's at and things like that. And I'll also tell you this. It's my Peter Tingle that tells me Carl Nell. That's one of it. That's Carl Nell's touch shit, man. Carl Nell was literally Army, Future Tech was in part of the program down there, right? Down at was it Redmond? Oh, sorry guys, getting ahead of myself. But anyway, Carl Nell. I want to say that he was probably one of the sources. I think Carl Nell was touching craft. Matter of fact, that X Corp, there's a little blurb about Carl Nell down there. Carl Nell is also, I think, one of the individuals that helped write the some of the language in that last legislation. So again, knowing what I know, knowing the people that the players that I know, what's on the line. Now think about this, guys. This is all I'm going to get to Taylor. What I just said about David, what I said about me in combat, and people want to give him shit about. Again, let's think about MH370. What the fuck just happened to that entire plane of people? And people want to give David shit for what? This dude's got a backbone that can carry the fucking world. What's up, Taylor?
Yeah, you got me thinking here about, I guess, the context of what David is doing. I think, even people that have seen the hearing and have seen some of his claims, it's easy to forget, I guess, the context again. So like what he's trying to accomplish, what exactly he's doing, who's in charge. But in that latest video that I guess Jesse Michael did, it's like an hour and 30 minutes, and it features David talking, giving a little more context. Everyone likes to get mad that David's not bringing out more public information, but like remember, he's under all these oaths. Like his purpose is not to satiate you with tasty stories about UFOs. He sees a larger purpose that is about government, about control, the law, how we operate as a democracy. So he's going to follow the book, and that's why he is without reproach. So this what he says in the new, I guess, in this video. Sure, it's not new information about UFOs, but one of the things he talked about was when he was having his interviews with the 40-some military people that he mentioned, telling him about the programs, the crash retrieval programs. He said that there was some discontentment among some of them in the way that these programs were run, but there's like nobody really wanted to stand up and make the change. And so David Grush in that interview, he's like, yeah, I decided to be the guy, to be the guy that might get stepped on, but who's going to lead the charge and actually organize the information released to the right people, so that I guess this discontentment. So the discontentment is over secrecy, maybe the military officials feeling like they've been on these programs for many years, making little progress, and they'd like to see change in maybe the hierarchy on how these programs operate. And so now David, using all the experience he has as an analyst, as a leader, I mean, you can read his whole bio from the documents that came, the documents from the hearing. I found a link for that online. It has all the witness statements and stuff, and it has David's bio. But anyway, so he's sort of a great person for the job to organize and start to push some buttons and hopefully make a change, which is going to take it's going to take years to roll out, even from 2017, which was a journalistic effort. The New York Times, from 2017 to now, that was a lot of time, but it's made like consistent progress. The UFO, topic being talked about, being taken seriously, and now this is like, to me, this is a major climax in the story. But we might still have another 5 years before any sort of government official disclosure, I guess, comes out. But I like that we're seeing these terms and this purpose get into the law. The Chuck Schumer thing, I think, is really big. I've never, when I've speculated about disclosure, how does disclosure work? I used to think that it's just good footage on the news of a UFO over a city, footage of aliens talking to people, like that's disclosure. But that depends on like if aliens are willing to do that, and maybe they're not allowed to do that. But the other new version of disclosure that I see, it really has to do with I guess, what our government already knows and how much they're willing to tell us and what effect they think that will have. And so there's also, I guess, in the larger context of aliens visiting our planet, there are a lot of political implications on how do we make decisions when these aliens are in our airspace. You know, how do we, like, there's a lot of rules that legislation would put in place for those kind of operations. And because those rules aren't there, I guess some of these military programs have a sort of free reign just because they are special access and there is no oversight. But anyway, so that's my little rant on, I think, being hopeful on what David is trying to accomplish, and kind of getting off the seat of like, oh, we just want more good stories. We want a better UFO photo. What we need is everyone involved, and not just people who like UFOs. We need people that don't care but know that this is real. So
I agree, man. Taylor, thank you for being here. And a lot of the stuff you said, 100% agree with. What I will say, one of the other things we would need would be cool. Imagine if Arrow, person in charge, used to have Jim Van's job, or maybe Doty's job, or any of the jobs that were interconnected in any way, right? Or like a Corso job, CIA, doesn't matter what branch, but you interacted with these because they exist. Matter of fact, Jim Van held Corso's old job with his craft and shit, with the phenomenon. He talks about being changed because of what he was told about it. There's a reason he was told these things. Positions like this exist not only within the federal government, and it's got its own thing. Each branch probably has their own, just like Carl Nell was when he was in the Army. He was essentially what Arrow, not Arrow, I'll say ATIP, but he was their liaison. Carl Nell wrote the legislation, like I said. So imagine if we had individuals like David, Carl, Corso, any of these individuals, someone who touched it, hell, my old legacy source, that didn't have to rely on what someone told you being too ridiculous. But it gets worse than that. What if it's not even that? What if it's an interconnected, a revolving door greed bullshit? And again, I don't want to disrespect anyone, especially anyone that served and things like that. Scott Stapp works for Northrop. He's a vital part of their tech, that future tech type shit, but also the JAD2C, I think is what it is. If I put an A in there, it's not supposed to be, that's my brain. But that's part of this whole sentient. They're all interconnected. These craft, what they see, all these things they talk to, the internet of killing things. But he also used to be part of the government. He was a general, a brigadier general, thank him for his service. And he was actually secretary, the undersecretary of defense. Might have that wrong, but he's somewhere up in there at one time. Carl Nell worked within these different groups as well. So I'm sure, what do you think he knows? And this is just me spitballing. I don't know Carl, and he's smart like a lot of people and avoids me like to play. You know what? Actually, Carl, if you're listening, accept my LinkedIn, please. It's been like a year. Like a year. But for real, if you just go look at all the information that's out there, and I posted a thread about it, I should probably retweet it. Like who Carl Nell is, what he's done. Look at his bio. It's freaking clear this guy has touched the programs, been a part of some programs, and I think he's the one giving David information. That's just my guess. Again, people like that's what we need, David. Any of those individuals. And there's lots of them. Hell, you have contractors that would probably qualify, in my opinion. Contractors who are part of programs for so long or doing things that also know these things. What we need is someone who's not a believer, who's not a skeptic, who's curious. Scientist. And I know Avi likes to sometimes shout he is that, but he's stuck in this with this Dunning-Kruger because scientists are the worst about it because they're scientists and they have degrees saying that's their profession. They don't ever think that they can be in Dunning-Kruger. But to listen to him talk sometimes, and I'm like, dude, man, do you not know shit about the United States government? I mean, how do you think this shit works with David and everything he said? You think you can just lie about everything and then put the government on fucking blast with those lies and then nothing? That's not how it works. And that's not how it works criminally. So it blows my mind that people aren't, they're not there yet. The reason they're not there, and we're going to go here again, we have friends and we have foes.
All the world's a player. Oh, wait, all the world's a stage. Everyone's a player is what I should have said, right? Because I promise you, the conversation's not only being guided by people that are friends that know the information. There's only certain ways you can get information out without having to go to prison, jail. You need people who are relatively intelligent. They can do their own investigations. And that's why sources come into play. I saw someone the other day made a comment. I'm not going to say names. Anyone that mentions source says they just made it up. Clearly, something somebody who's never had a source or doesn't know anything says, right? Because you don't get information that's hidden without said sources, leaks. That's just the way it works. So you use these and you further your investigation, research, and that's what happens. But the good guys aren't the only ones. Bad guys, they don't come out, hey, I'm a bad guy, follow me. Same thing. Different people, just the same thing over and over. So use your filters, pay attention to what you're watching, why you're watching. If you see people change drastically and those things they're talking about, shit, see, got them. I've been watching people actually lately, and I'm thinking, oh my Lord, that's all that's in my head. Because again, I've heard certain things from certain places that mirror some of the things that play the rabbit holes that they're going down. It's an active game. So I really highly recommend, on top of anything you hear, use those filters, research, click that link. That way you can see what's being said is real or some hyped up bullshit to get your emotional fucking segments, going crazy. Because while disclosure was happening, the entire time disclosure was happening, there was another shadow war, UFO Twitter war 2023 going on, right? And I unwittingly played a part, and I regret, the thing is this, different players causing different things. So whenever disclosure is happening, no one's paying attention to disclosure. Every time someone types in disclosure, disclosure doesn't pop up. What pops up is what we're fighting about, because that's the shit that gets attention. The words we use. Let's say it's Nazi, it's this, it's that. That's really important. So shit, I pay attention to everything that's said to me now, and I try to research it out thing because I was a clout chasing fool back in the day, and that can get you in trouble. And I'm more interested now in at least helping others find answers, make them, if I can. Shout out to one of my veteran friends. I'll retweet in here. She needs a new laptop. The reason I say donate is this: Astral helped me get my photography thing going, my photo, and that got me into researching. Something like that gives you focus. When you have an experience that no one else can understand, and I imagine she does, because I do, even if I talk about nuts and bolts, if I go my real way, people won't listen, understand. Something like that helps you answer your own questions. Then you're spending your time doing something constructive. So I'm going to list her shit in here right now because I want people to donate to get her laptop. It's not even an expensive one, man. It's something we can do for a veteran that'll give her some constructive time, because regardless of what people think of me or other people in these rooms, some experiences, such as Chris Bledsoe, are so irrational and make zero sense, mine included, if you guys understood. I often don't want to talk about it, but I do talk about it because I know there's no way I'm the only one. I know for a fact I'm not. It keeps going. It keeps getting more and more, I guess you would say, esoteric, metaphysical. And the more I pay attention to that physical aspect, the more I see. So as that veil falls off, it keeps falling. And you start understanding, and by that I mean you're not special, because again, I think we're all on the cusp of evolution. This isn't a Aryan nation thing. This is humanity has to evolve to beat the Fermi paradox, to get to where those beings are trying to take us. And some obviously evolved before others. And I think that's what's going on. Some have been tweaked by NHI, which Dan Sherman talks about, John Ramirez talks about with the Jason and Mitocorp Human Genome Project. So, okay, come on back, Sue. Astral, go ahead and take over. He must be smoking a bowl every time I say Astral take over.
That's exactly what I'm doing, dude.
What would you like to discuss? Anything you want to talk about or discuss? I actually need to start packing after this, too. I got to finish packing at least. Don't say it all at once, Astral.
I
Please
think,
don't talk
dude,
about all the subjects.
there's a deeper idea that was talked about in a podcast that I was watching a couple days ago, where it was like the phenomenon itself is trying to communicate something, but it's limited in some fashion. So, like, it can only appear in some sort of way that you can interpret it. Um, so it's like for some people it could be something, but other people it could be something else. Or for some people in 1940, it could be something, and for some people in 2023, it could be something else. So, like, do you feel like it's catering itself to each individual? It's like, here I am, and you guys have to deal with it.
I think, yes. I think if you take Jacques Vallée, you take Keel, you take Ford, Charles Fording, they all say, whenever you have an experience, consider it enchantment. You've got a spell put over you. You're seeing, hearing, feeling everything they want you to at that moment. Why do I say that? If we all exist through electromagnetic pulses, waves, vibrations of some kind, and the way we vibrate matter and do things and changes anything dynamic whatsoever. What does our brain run on? It's not so hard to see them hijacking, hacking our brains, having us see what they need to get what we need to out of it. Because again, one of the things that's important whenever people talk about contacting ET, things like that, it's not a conversation. It's a rolling mnemonic dialogue. By that I mean you see everything you need to see at that moment with all the knowledge you need to understand at that moment. There's no guessing around. Wait, did he say this and mean this or did this? It's just all of a sudden your database expands and you have that photo that you can look at and reference. I don't even know how. Why did I start talking about that shit, man? I really got on a tangent there. Did I answer your question or did I skip your question, bro? My head's everywhere. Look, I'm getting ready to leave, move. So kind of excited, kind of scared I'm going to be buried in the desert, but I'm into that. So wait, did you just clap because I was going to be buried in the desert, or because I'm excited?
I clapped.
Oh, somebody, trying to bring. Hey, I can't bring
Shane,
him.
I don't know if you see, but we got Ashton, the MH370 master himself, is in the room. So
Yeah, he can come up.
bring
I'll send him an invite. He's welcome to, but I don't want to put him on. You know what I mean? Sometimes I hate to just say, come up and talk. And if someone wants just to listen, whatever, because, I can be a bit much. Just ask my girl. What's up, Niles? I see you in here as well.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Okay.
What's up, Ashton? And now that you're up here, I'd actually like to know all the research you've done, everything that's important to you. What stands out as, all right, guys, this is what you got to pay attention to. This is why it's real.
Yeah, first I just want to thank you guys for, supporting me and having me on and talk and what have you. And, I think that first thing I want to say is what you guys were mentioning before is how a lot of these topics can be ridiculed, and I think that to me, I find that just disgusting, frankly. And that's a big part of the reason why I'm so motivated to prove that the videos are authentic, which I'm 100% convinced that they are, because I think that these videos open the door to all sorts of other explanations for, especially for stuff that doesn't have as much evidence as these do. But with respect to the videos themselves, when we try to connect to people who perhaps aren't as willing to believe things that are paranormal or harder to believe, the two biggest aspects that break down the existing disinformation out there are the fact that there was no debris field found for this plane and that we have all these hydrophone data that didn't detect any impact in the ocean, which pretty much proves conclusively this plane did not crash into the ocean. We would have detected it on like 4 different systems. Multiple radar systems should have caught it going in the South Indian Ocean. They didn't. And when you tell that to people, that's where people start to realize, like, oh, wait, there is something here. Like, in a post 9/11 world, the plane can't just go missing. Can't not leave a debris field. A 777 crash into the ocean. Can't leave a single, piece of debris. And then the disinformation that gets out there, misinformation from the media of, they'll say, oh, well, there was a piece of debris were found, right? But when you look into it, it falls apart upon basic scrutiny. There's only one piece that was conclusively tied to the plane, this flapper on. and they don't tell you that it didn't use a unique serial number. That this unique serial plate that's got to be bolted onto this thing is magically missing, right? Which is pretty damn unusual. So that's the first thing. And then the second part is probably breaking down this pilot suicide myth with this whole flight path. Like a lot of us here lived through 9/11, where UA 93 was, crashed due to the fact that some heroes basically went and attacked the cockpit, and they crashed the plane like immediately when the people did that, right? And those people all sacrificed their lives to potentially save wherever that plane was going to crash. And like, if this was some type of pilot suicide scenario, we would have expected something like that. The pilot would have crashed the plane like immediately, right? So when you start to break that down and show that, like, when this plane turned around by the official flight path, it's going directly to Penang Langkawi Airport, which is the closest airport if you're like the pilot's following the book on like where they should go. Like, that's the stuff that really starts to get to people be like, okay, wait, there is something here. This does seem to be a conspiracy. And then you can open the door to, okay, what's going on with these orbs we got going on here? And this plane literally just zapping out of existence in front of us. But that's what I would kind of start with people. And then when it comes to groups like this, then we can start talking about, okay, what's going on here? Is this non-human intelligence? Is this our reverse engineer technology? Where do these people go? Did they get sent to another dimension? Did they get saved by some non-human intelligence? Is this teleported to Diego Garcia where, the government did something to them, et cetera?
Man, that's all. Look, I'm going to tell you this, guys. Regardless, I'm going to tell you from a person who came to this subject and who's only at the MH370 from his own investigation that had nothing to do with MH370. Matter of fact, what some of the things Ashton just said, I don't know all too well because I'm only refreshing myself because my concurrent investigation on BlackRock, Blackwater, the reverse engineered tech, and semiconductors, and all the players involved coincided with this and what I know them to have and what my sources have said. I can promise you everything Ashton has said is true. Every freaking bit of it. And our literally investigations, while running concurrent, are completely different, but they intertwine completely. No doubt. So you need to be paying attention. This shit impresses the hell out of you. Matter of fact, do you know anything about the satellite image you're watching on that?
Yeah, we might have found something new out today, actually, surprisingly. So when I was digging around trying to find this Agent 370 person, I think, like, I'm going to say 90% certainty this guy's got to be him or really related to that. That's when I found out about this plane, this I'm going to say it wrong, EP3E Ares 2 plane, which is this spy plane, basically. And one of the really interesting parts about that is how it talks about that this plane can provide real-time video intelligence. And that's the part where I started to wonder, maybe what we're seeing here is a combination of the satellite looking down, which is relaying through the SIGINT system, which is an interconnected network of assets, right? And that they've got this computer program that can build a battlefield awareness map using that satellite data essentially, and do that all in real time. And the reason why I think that's so compelling is that when we watch the satellite video, you can see as the user moves the camera, every time they move it, there's like a very, very brief, slight, almost computer processing that's happening there. And that makes me think that this is some kind of really advanced computer situation that's kind of pulling this data all together to allow someone who might be in the plane actually, looking at a computer terminal, watch and track what's going on from a battlefield awareness perspective. So I just think that's really interesting. But I was going to say that again, like, I love that there's all these different explanations because it does open the door to esoteric explanations. And I'm not trying to tell anyone what to believe. So honestly, my opinions have changed a lot throughout this too. So I tell people that my favorite theory is the idea that this like sentient AI has kind of taken over the world already, just because I'm super creeped out by AI in general. But I think the door is open for pretty much everything. I'm just trying to present the evidence to people.
Well, check this out, Ashton. Actually, what you were just saying on the real-time battlefield updates and things like that, they actually have an AI program named Sentient, and its whole program is to find and locate and track UAPs, which would be those
Yep.
fucking orbs. So the fact that you said sentient AI,
Yeah, no, I read about that. It was declassified in 2012, and that's what when I read that I was like, oh boy, this is really creepy.
yeah, I think that's what was actually the satellite. I think was part of that. It was using that as it was tracking it. That's how I ended up with you. I was doing Sentient, JAD2, all the different Northrop and Crash reverse engineering. That's how I weaved my way into use because Same thing.
Yeah, one thing I'll say too is I'm like 100% sure that like Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, potentially even a couple of these other companies, like they are deep into reverse engineering like UAP stuff, and I think that the government basically gave them that the UFOs or whatever so that they'd be shielded from like Freedom of Information Act requests, stuff like that. I mean, you look at the history of these companies, they have these billions and billions of dollars of contracts that they've had forever, right? But when you think of like other major companies, like they don't act like other major companies do, right? They pretty much just act like the government does. And to me, that's always been suspicious. And when I started, like in 2017, really starting to take UFOlogy a little bit more seriously, that was like the first thing I noticed. And I've talked to people that worked at some of these companies, and they like always give me these like smiles and looks at stuff they can't talk about. So, absolutely, I think there's connections there.
I agree. Matter of fact, I think I got a Twitter thread about Scott Stapp, Northrop Grumman, and JAD. Am I saying it right? JD2C, the program that basically attaches to the Internet of Killing Things, sentient. So basically, all the different weapons we create, they all attach to each other, talk to each other, Terminator 2, Judgment Day style. And he used to be a brigadier general in the United States Air Force. I think it was Air Force, and also an undersecretary of defense. Now he's sitting on one of these companies, aerospace defense, and he's a part of these programs that I guarantee you are, like you just said, they've all had reverse engineered tech given by the government. They gave the government back the minimal shit to get them by, while they funneled the money they were making from contracts and from civilian sales back into making more and more tech. And that tech is the fucking portal. We literally saw that tech is probably, in my opinion, what I'm seeing is, I think what we're seeing is, like you said, you have that whole dynamic of you got sentient going, rolling, things like that. I don't know. For me, I don't know this. No one's told me this. I think what we're watching is someone in said craft recording it. So the craft that was, I guess, a part of it, I think that was someone in there doing that shit. But I'll say that Alaska, the crash in Alaska, the shit that no one wants to talk about, that we still don't know about, was the same company, Blackwater. Blackwater and BlackRock are the ones behind MH370, all because of
But
semiconductors.
what's the I'm interested. My question to Ashton would be, what is the current resistance point at right now? Like, what are people like? You would think of, okay, fucking Mick West, yeah, everybody thinks of that. Like, why did it die down and then now there's a little bit of a resurgence? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what was the initial pushback of why this wasn't legit in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people didn't want it to be real, right? And then if you believe these videos are real, they absolutely come with a very real disinformation campaign that's keeping not just these videos quiet, but lots of other stuff that's probably real, right? And other stuff is easier to discredit because you may only have one footage, or it might be like just a light in the distance. But this footage is very difficult to discredit. So when you look at that VFX, like I think that you have to realize there's two things. There's manufactured consensus is a very real thing that happens on social media now, right? And I would argue that it happened probably somewhere between 2012 and 2016 is when the government realized they can manipulate people's beliefs by pretending like things are popular, by using bots to upvote stuff. And Reddit is the number one source of disinformation on the planet for sure, because it's the easiest thing to manipulate. So it appears that how this was done was that Mick West used a sock puppet account that was 1 day old that the moderators manually approved, and they almost certainly knew that it was him. And he didn't use his own name because people don't trust Mick West. If he had posted it under his own name, they would have immediately downvoted to 0. The disinformation wouldn't work if they knew where it's coming from. If it appears as though it's coming from a third-party source, and then it gets upvoted right to the top of Reddit, and you look at the thread, honestly. Everyone's, oh, thank God this was debunked. Okay, we never have to talk about this again. Okay, let's ban all discussion of it, right? That's very, very powerful brainwashing. And that's essentially what happened, right? And that's why you see so many people, even now, they don't even know how they know about it. They just know that, oh, that was been debunked, right, by some VFX video game from the 90s, which it hasn't been. Like, if you just ask people how many pixels match, it's like less than 50%. And you could do that with pretty much anything. I can do that with a donut, which I've made jokes about, right? So if you understand that part of it, and you also realize then that the way you break that down is the counter narrative. And that's what we're building here. So I've known that there's manufacturer consensus is how they do this. So the counter to that is we build our own community, right, of free-minded, open-minded thinkers where we can break down that brainwashing. We can show the evidence that even if somehow that was a match, which is not, it wouldn't discredit the rest of the videos, right? And it just goes to show how surface level some of this discrediting really is, right? They don't really get into anything. They just try to pick one little piece and then they say, okay, it's been debunked. They don't put themselves to the same level of scrutiny that they hold to other people, right? Because then in counter, what we should be saying is, okay, what's your story for who made this? Did Regicide Anon make this? If so, how did one person do this in this period of time? How did they know what classified footage would look like? There's no basis to create this, right? So that's the thing too. I would urge you guys when it comes to other things, challenge that, push back. When people say this is debunked, tell them, okay, well, what is it then, right? Because what you'll realize is they aren't willing to put their own ideas up to the same level of scrutiny that they hold others. Does that answer your question, or did I miss something?
There are two sources of video information, right? Like I want to, like, there are two sources of video feeds that are being analyzed. Is that right?
Yeah, two different angles too, right? So interestingly enough, if you read the piece I wrote on sacrifice, there's like a whole lot of intent in terms of how these were leaked. Like the first satellite footage was leaked, and I'm sure the leaker thought they had absolute proof at that point because they had the coordinates in there. And if you believe Regicide's description, which I have no reason not to believe, it was sent to them on March 12th, which is a day before this whole narrative of going into the South Indian Ocean. So the leaker didn't even know there was a narrative about this plane going to the South Indian Ocean. They just thought for sure everyone would realize, oh, this is the Nicobar Islands. This is the video of the plane. And that we would be able to use amateur astronomers' trajectories to figure out the exact satellite, USA 229, that was most likely taking the video. And then we didn't believe it, right? And it didn't gain any traction. Media didn't talk about it. So they leaked the second video, which is that MQ-1C Gray Eagle, which has been, the thermal layer seems to have been added manually over the top. This is using an extremely advanced, probably Raytheon electro IR camera. And that's just part of the reason why I think it had to be one of the operators who was the leaker, because they added this thermal layer. And if you read about why they add these thermal layers, the thermal layers can be added just software that is like built into the cameras. So they pretty much just have to choose what they want the range of the colors to be, and then they can add it over the top. And what this means is that the leaker really wanted us to see a lot of detail in the footage. So if you compare and contrast the two videos, you realize that from the satellite, you don't get a lot of detail about the orbs. And when you look at the zap in the satellite, it's white, right? Because it's using a false color IR. So if you didn't know much about it, you'd think, oh, okay, that's just an explosion, right? The plane blew up. But when we look at the thermal, we learn a lot more about it. We realize that there's these trails that are leading the orbs forward, like pulling them forward, almost like train tracks, which is super unusual. Like there's no way anyone would even think to make that because we still have no basis to even understand that today. There's nothing even similar to that, right? Unless you think of the UFOlogy aspect. And we can see that they're cold as well, these dark trails. And then we realize that the zap is not hot. It's not an explosion. It's a cold, dark event. An intermediate black hole is what I've been calling it, just because that's what the scientific papers seem to call it. And that's really what they wanted us to see. And if we didn't have the color there, it would have been a lot easier to discredit it and say, oh no, maybe they're just inverted or something. They would have come up with anything. If they can say that it's a VFX, they can come up with basically anything. Now the debunkers, they gave up on debunking all the other aspects of the videos because they realized they couldn't. And in most situations, they were just proving things to us. We had a debunker that proved USA 229 was in the right spot. We had debunkers prove that the turn that we see is consistent with 777-200, which if you look at the testimonial from the Top Gun Maverick guy on Reddit, basically said that even they couldn't even recreate that in 2022, let alone somebody doing this in 2014, like potentially on their own. So they wanted us to see all this detail about it, which basically makes it undeniable that it's something that is just far beyond what we thought from the public sphere.
Let me ask you this. You mentioned operators. Do you know where those operators come from? Do you happen to know, and are you willing to say a name? And do you know, let's say, for a fact that necessarily that wasn't a reverse engineered craft that they were filming that from?
I mean, I don't know for sure, but I would say that we shouldn't probably assume that it's like they're filming it from a reverse engineered craft if we have like a more logical explanation, which is that it's happening from like this Ares spy plane, but it's got to be satellite footage for a lot of reasons.
Yeah,
At least
I
for the
agree with the
one, right?
satellite. I
Oh
just in
yeah.
my head for some reason, because of the
Mhm,
cloaking, the ability, I just see
mhm,
them utilizing and not even understanding the fact that
mhm,
sentient knows what they're doing.
mhm. Yeah. I mean, the thing I guess is that this guy that I think who it is, Edward Lynn, who was charged and basically facing life in prison. And they basically gave him a plea deal to only go in prison for between 6 and 9 years, depending on how much leniency they gave him there. His whole history is basically being in these craft and in just airplanes. And this is now where I think the theory pulls together, where like this all comes together with this airplane because these SIGINT systems from a Black Vault FIA basically work in triplicate. And we've been wondering what's the third system, right? We got a satellite, we've got an MQ-1C drone, and what's the third one? And the answer there seems now like, oh, it's this plane, right? This spy plane. And Kate T, the witness, she saw the glowing MH370. She also saw two other planes that had navigation lights. So this actually lends a lot of credit to the idea that, okay, one of these planes is probably this spy plane. And if you believe that this was remote controlled and hacked and jammed by another plane, then the other one was probably one of those AWACS, which is basically a radar plane that can jam and hack other planes, which you read about, pretty damn cool.
Yes, it is actually. They got the matter of fact, most people will know them. The AWACS has this giant dish on the top. You can't miss it. It's a huge fucking dish that's flying
Yep.
around with. So everything you're saying, matter of fact, like I said, I was under a different impression, but yours makes more sense. So again, I got here at a different rate. Everything he's saying is legit, man. I'm telling you, again, we're crisscrossing on investigations. Mine's just about the people, places, and why, and his is what's really happening. And as I'm watching it, didn't even know it existed. Probably the best research I've seen on most subjects related to the phenomenon or anything, because most people disregard everything. He hasn't. He walks you through what's happening, how it's happening, and you're seeing it all. So it's so hard for me to see people just disregard all of this. You mentioned, so I'm gonna go back to operators. Have you heard anything about where they get these operators, or by that I mean, like, I guess where they possibly come from, and if it's what happens when they leave?
You mean in terms of the people who might be like in the plane, kind of moving the camera stuff around? Is that what you're asking? Or do you mean like in terms of the orbs themselves?
Orbs. Yeah, the orbs.
Oh, that I have no idea, honestly. The weird part about that is like the first orb comes from off the side of the screen. The second orb, if you look very closely in the satellite, you can see it, in my opinion, pretty clearly skimming across the water. It looks almost like the Go Fast video, and then it shoots up through the cloud, and then it gets into formation with the first orb. And then the third orb comes from off the side of the screen again. And so it's like, where are these coming from, right? And that's almost lends it more to like a non-human intelligence scenario, because I don't get like, is there a boat or something that's shooting these things, or really not sure. But again, just because the technology is so advanced, there's not really a way to know. My opinion is that it's not something that's being manually controlled, because the way that it locks into formation and then the pattern that precedes it is too precise. It feels like a program that's being run, kind of going back to that whole sentient thing. Where in 2014, we would have never even been able to understand that, because AI at that point almost felt like futurology. Now people are talking about Chat GPT. People are trying to look through the charging document that was redacted to try to recreate it with Chat GPT and
Actually,
AI.
I did that today. I posted it, all three of the fucking pages.
Yeah. So it's like we're in a place now where it's like when you look at it, it's like, oh wait, is this just AI that's like doing this crazy pattern perfectly to, I don't know, create the black hole? Or they've said that maybe it could be entangling the plane. It could be removing excess particles from around the plane, because apparently if you create a black hole, if particles that you don't want fall into it, it can collapse the black hole, supposedly. So there's a lot of theories, but again, I'm not an expert at weird advanced technology, so I kind of leave the rest of that for people to speculate.
In my head, for some reason, I'm going to go back here. I think in Tic Tac, the orbs came from the Tic Tac. Tic Tac probably remotely controlled, and it could be undersea. Because again, if we go back to what Commander Fravor saw, right, or uh, Lou Elzano talks about Julie, all these things that the undersea remotely controlled thing. And then because you had made that comment, and then I know earlier someone had talked about it, and it kind of made sense. And the reason I brought up operator, probably the bad guys recording was when they took off. How do you know? Activate your group and get them there to record in time to watch the disappearance, unless you already know what's going to happen. But that could also be, and this is what I'm thinking as well, because you admit there could be some corruption beyond. It could be NGOs working because, again, here's something I'm gonna. I think his name's General Kohler, Kaler. But anyway, he's part of these groups, and he's a huge push on ICBMs need to be remodernized, and that all involves what? Not saying he's connected to this, but there could be some whole thing we don't understand. But the only reason I again sit with, I think it was an operator that was working for Blackwater, because you need proof it was done, and you need proof it was done the right way. And I think these individuals were getting that. They were there when it was before it happened and when it was going to happen. And the only way that happens is if you somehow are there and bait somebody into the situation, or you're luckily flying by when it happens. And it could be the aircraft you were talking about. But we gotta, how did it know? Was someone on the inside working with them? Another option. And it keeps going crazier.
Yeah, I think that's a big question, right? It's like I can't tell whether or not this was planned and they were just in the right exact spot because they had it planned out, or if they just got lucky and they were like, responding to an emergency event. Now, there was enough time to respond because there was US Thailand exercises happening in the area at the time. And this plane, from the time it went dark to the time it got to our coordinates, was about an hour and 20 minutes. So there is enough time to respond, but it seems like that window is pretty narrow. And that plane that I was talking about, that plane actually also doesn't move as fast as the 777. The 777-200 can go about 600 miles an hour. That E3E I'm gonna say the name wrong. The
E3B?
Aries, yeah, the Aries 2 can only go about 475 miles an hour. The drone only goes 175 miles an hour. So just basic math there tells us that these things had to have intercepted it one way or another, and that's a big clue one way or another on it. Now, the last thing I would say on it is if you believe in the kind of non-human intelligence encounter scenario, then I would definitely recommend taking a look at the 4chan leaks because this person came out and they were able to just answer questions on the fly. Now, I don't know that maybe all of what they were saying is exactly true or if maybe they had even been fed disinformation from the government. But what they had said was that they were working on some of these crash retrieval programs and they knew a lot about what was going on. And the big thing they claimed is that there's these underwater, almost like a mothership or base platform that creates UFOs to spec. And that anything that goes near these platforms just gets zapped off the face of the earth and no one knows what happens to them. And that the government thinks these have been here for over 100 years, potentially even much longer than that. Which I just find the reason why I found it so compelling is I'd never heard anything like that. I'd followed ufology and it's like, oh wow, that's really odd. So is this person just making this up on the fly, or like, is this really what was going on there?
So check it out, bro. I just put her up, and then that's Julia's who you're talking about, that underwater remote thing. And actually, so if you want to check the nest, it's also in the thread, guys. Click on it. The 4chan
Yep, that's
leak.
the one.
They call it Julia or something along those lines. Lou Elizondo also discussed it as an incident where special operators go to retrieve a missile that went into the ocean, and they had to retrieve it. And while they're retrieving it, pulling it out of the water, something comes up and swallows the missile. Not human. Comes up, grabs it, takes it down. Julia. That's what I think every time I hear that as well. So Ashton was on point about Julia. Zuguda, what do you got?
Hey guys, thank you so much for bringing me up. I just wanted to ask Ashton's thoughts about this as someone who's kind of looked into this and maybe thought about the incident more than anyone else in this space. And Ashton, thank you so much for taking the time to kind of investigate this and reaching out. I really do appreciate that. I'm going to take it on face value that the videos are real, and not only because I think you've done the work to prove that they likely are, but I think that your work kind of provides a lot of confidence that these videos are likely showing the true event. Now, if I think from my understanding from watching some of your interviews, you're more leaning towards the idea that this could be US tech, partly because of where you think the plane went afterwards, and also because the cameras and drones just happened to be in the right spot at the right time to watch it happen. But why would you use such advanced tech for an event that you know is going to get a ton of attention afterwards? And to do something, essentially take control of a plane. to do something that you could do through conventional means, right? Whether that's faking a technical difficulty or pretending there's maybe a hijacking on the plane and sending up some planes to escort it back down somewhere to take off whoever you need from that plane, or to take off the tech that's on that plane that shouldn't be going to Beijing. So just, I'm not saying you know the answer, but just what are your thoughts about why not use more conventional means to achieve exactly the same event?
Yeah. No, that's a really good question. Thought about it a lot. And I think that on some of the podcasts, people have brought that up too. It's like, why take this huge risk, right? This is a huge risk to do something like this. And the first side I would say is that maybe you have to do this to a plane because you can't do it to a boat or a car because those things are on the ground or in the water and you're trying to teleport something, you have to teleport that along with it. Now that's kind of aside the point. But from the other perspective, I've kind of come to two different conclusions. Either it's the motive related to this Freescale Semiconductors company, which you can say it's the scientists, of which 13 of them were Malaysian nationals, 7 of them were Chinese nationals, and you're trying to prevent them from getting to China with their intellectual property because perhaps they can, give China this technology, right? Or get them closer to this technology, and you're trying to hold them back. And this is then a shadow war for control of this technology. Could be the patent related to, some that's apparently a really advanced patent, or it could just be for entire control of Freescale Semiconductors. This company got sold out right afterwards to NXP Semiconductors, I believe. And if you look at who owns that, it's pretty much all of the elites essentially. So from that perspective, you could say that that's enough of a reason. Now, personally, I don't think money is enough of a reason, but the intellectual property side is compelling to me. But if this is billions of dollars in hyper advanced technology that this company somehow is helping to produce, that could be a motive. If you're looking at it from the non-human intelligence perspective, I think that you could say that the motive there is to try to save the passengers from an emergency event or something like that. Because if something happened at 1721 where this plane goes dark and it was damaged, fire started, this plane's not going to last very long. In fact, maybe the plane was depressurized and the oxygen masks are only going to last for like 15 or 20 minutes. So this could have been like a doomed flight where either the government is trying to save them and the only means is they have to pull out the hyper advanced technology that will save them, or that the non-human intelligence is benevolent and trying to save them to some degree. But either way, this is obviously just pure speculation. And I think that it's a big point. It's like, wow, this is a crazy amount of risk. You're filming this on 2 cameras. If this leaks out, it gets out to the world like it is right now. So you've got to have a pretty solid reason to take some risk like this.
Can I say and
Great
point
question.
out? Let me point this out, and I'm not saying this is for a fact. The reason I keep thinking it was them filming to make sure it was done. When you become someone that rich and that wealthy, and there's no checks and balances and things like that, you don't give a shit. You can do what you want. I imagine he'd be more concerned with making sure there was zero proof to tie him back to such things and technology than using said tech. You have a better chance of getting away with something, disappearing an entire plane, than bringing an old-fashioned plane and blowing it out of the sky. You made that point earlier.
Yeah, one other part too that I just remembered is that I always think because at least right now I'm pretty convinced this must be teleportation. If you think it's teleportation, why would you teleport a plane? The only reason I can think of is you're trying to hide the plane from wherever it's going, right? Because otherwise, if you're just flying it normally to say Diego Garcia or wherever you think it went, they can probably get tracked by other people's satellites, radars, etc. But if you fly it to a point where there's there's no other satellites looking down there except for yours, and then you teleport it, now it's really hard to track and figure out where it went. And the reason why I think there's some evidence to that is that China, right after, like 2 days after, and you guys can go look this up, they released this picture, this satellite picture. And it was reported in Western media for us that it was potentially debris of the plane. They didn't find any debris there, but if you go look at the picture, it looks like 3 orbs in a triangle formation. It almost feels to me like China was going, hey, we know you did something sketchy. We don't know exactly what you did, but we know you did something sketchy. So that's another theory. Ultimately, we got to figure out why, but I think only the government can probably tell us. And that's why, when they do try to lie about this, which eventually they're going to probably have to, I'm going to be sitting there waiting. And this is the reason why I'm disseminating this information to you guys as well, so that everybody knows, hey, here's what we think are the narratives. Let's see what they try to wriggle in and try to claim, right?
So you know why Blackwater changed its name to Z? Because it moved itself to China. China bought it out back in the day. Matter of
Wow.
fact, if you keep going forward, I'm willing to bet that no, I'm not willing to bet. If these superconductor thing, whenever the whole pandemic happened, one thing we fucking noticed was, oh shit, the supply lines are screwed up, and China having anything that we are reliant on is not a good thing. I know that Z renamed because they no longer work for China. Doesn't mean they didn't work for China. Shit, again, this I sound like Charlie from It's Always Sunny, but what makes sense is the amount of money the United States is going to put into semiconductors, it's not billions, it's billions upon billions. AI, all the future tech, everything connected, it's all reliant. All the upgrades from the ICBMs, which we have to have, same thing. So we take that from China. We take these things, they're the ones with the materials and things like that. That's another reason for it, right? But Blackwater and BlackRock both playing a role because, again, BlackRock has a portfolio of future tech iShares that's nothing but semiconductors and AI. And here's where it gets really wild. You made a comment. Why would they teleport a plane? What if you knew that patent was transformative, but you didn't know how to actually make the thing? How do you get it? You want to keep your money and not lose it because they make the patent, but you're a greedy piece of shit. So what do? You want that money too. You disappear the plane and you take the people and you get what you need out of them. That's what would make sense to me because why would you disappear an entire plane like that? They needed something from it. And with the patent, they probably couldn't get everything they needed. Again, I'll tell you that in the common, what's it called? The conspiracy theory about the whole um not Black Rock. Well, I think his name Justin. There's an individual, Jeremy or Justin, who's kind of sits up high making some choices like this. So all of this makes sense just from the fact of if you want to disappear a plane, you need something from it. Unless I mean, I guess it would look better to just explode it, but you need the individuals to talk to, right? Because you need something from them. That makes sense to me
Hmm.
100%.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. This is a good discussion. I'm gonna have to drop you in a minute because I want to go get some dessert and I need to get some sleep tonight. It's been hard to sleep, as you guys can probably imagine. But I do want to say I greatly appreciate everyone in here, everyone listening, you guys who are talking about MH370. Because reality too is the more we talk about this, the quicker we're gonna get answers from someone, right? Like you can tell everyone's being silent about this. I think that a lot of the big names are afraid. Maybe they're afraid that their shows will get canceled by the government. Maybe they're afraid that it's somehow a hoax for whatever fake, even though we know it's potentially not. And the way that we'll get that national attention is that we just keep talking about, keep making it popular, make it trend, what have you. So I just want to thank you guys all very much.
Hey, Ashley, I want to thank you for being here. I'm actually going to close the space out here shortly. This was such a good space and topic and enjoyable conversation. I had no clue that I lost my co-host. Asshole. It just kind of dipped on me, man. So thanks for being here, dude. I'm literally, like I said, anything I can do to help your investigation, I absolutely will. People need to open their eyes. It's all freaking out there.